Hello, everybody. Welcome to take 2 of episode 8 of Summoning Insight. I'm Montecristo. I like to talk about League of Legends, sometimes in front of Korean people, sometimes in front of American people, people all over the world in English, that's at the very least. And of course, joining me as always is my co-host Thorin, who was cloned from the DNA of a hobo and Ned Stark. He likes to write about League of Legends, but nobody reads his articles because he can't post them on Reddit anymore. And then he complains about it on Twitter and wonders why no one pays attention to him. And of course, our guest this week is Curse's IWillDominate, who was put in Riot jail for running his mouth for a year. And now he's back. He went through the Riot brainwashing program to make him into a non-toxic player. And we're going to talk about All-Stars today. Did it help?
Completely rehabilitated. I'm completely reformed.
Did they peel your eyelids back and make you watch videos of good manners, saying GG after all your games?
Yeah, they had me watch Scar's chat for 35 games in a row, and I just became like the nicest player ever. So now I'm here, and I'm reformed completely.
That's good. You're now a functional member of LoL Society again.
Yep, I'm a positive member of the community.
Okay, so if we kick it off into the All-Star event then. Right, anyone who's watching on stream, obviously bear with us a minute. I know we did this a little bit a second ago, but we'll just do it again. So, what were people's initial impressions of All-Stars? Monty, like what were you thinking coming in it should be like, and how did it execute on that?
It was a good tournament. It was interesting to see the #1 teams in the world go against each other, or ostensibly #1 teams in each region at the very least. I think it was a good preview. It was a good chance for the teams to practice and scrim against each other for a tournament that was really only worth a relatively small cash prize. It was all right, all things considered. I mean, SK Telecom crushed everybody, so that was but.
What did you think, Dominate? Like when you heard the format and how it was announced, was it what you expected it would be? Was it better in areas, worse in areas? What do you think?
I mean, I guess it was better than I expected it to be. Like when I originally heard the format, I thought it was gonna be like meaningless, and I didn't know like how tryhard it would be. But it seemed like teams put on like their best performances. But yeah, I mean SKT. I mean going into it, it was pretty obvious SKT was gonna win the whole thing, and yep, that's how it turned out.
Before we go into the actual real competitive games there, all the different modes, etc. Am I the only one who was watching all those modes? Like, okay, I don't care about URF and stuff, so they can have that if they want. But what I don't get is if you're gonna fly all those players out, why not just have like the All-Star tournament, the other one that they had with the teams, and then just have a real All-Star game as well? Because then you could have had the real 5v5 with proper positions and not like 2 AD carries on one team, or I mean that would have been the option, right?
I mean, for me, yeah, I would have thought so.
Sure, but it's still like a relatively meaningless, like fun tournament. I thought the games were definitely more entertaining than I thought they were going to be. But I mean, we've talked about this before. I think that the best format combines the kind of like mini worlds alongside a true All-Star tournament, like we had in the last All-Star. So hopefully next year we can get both of them together. That'd be cool.
So
I would have liked to see.
Yeah, sorry, keep going.
I mean, just personally, like seeing teams of like all-star players in their own positions just makes it more of like a regional thing to me than like this whole like tournament where they're playing like Earth and Hexakill and all these modes that don't really matter. You don't really get to see like how good Bjergsen is versus like Cool, for example, or like XiYang, or like any of like the top like mids of, like around the world. So I just would have liked to see like a more all-star format where you can see like some level of team play in it instead of just like this like solo queue game of like Earth, which is what it pretty much turned into.
So for the tournament itself, I remember people coming in. Fnatic were actually one of the teams people were perhaps hyping, because with other teams they all had a knock on them. Okay, so SK Telecom was supposed to be slumping. OMG, we didn't know if they'd use their mid laner, whether he would get the visa in time. TPA have got brand new players. Cloud9 didn't have high. And so in theory of everyone, Fnatic should be the team who can be, in theory, the peak coming from their region. And if we see in this tournament, they won one map. Well, you're not allowed to call it a map anymore in Riot World. Okay, they won one game. 1 game out of 6, okay. What did we think of that overall?
Oh man, I can't wait to talk about this. This is my favorite. So, I haven't had really a chance to unload about this one yet, but Fnatic obviously coming in.
I'm just going to unleash you, Monty.
Hey man, I'm frustrated with Fnatic. Like, the thing about it was, I was so complimentary of this team at Worlds, and I was so impressed with them. I mean, to go back at Worlds, I was saying this team's working really hard. This team is here to play. This team is dedicated. It's like when Fnatic showed up, they had their manager Harry, they had their new coach Sammy, who's known as Fnatic Rico. They had a high elo, I didn't know him, but high elo solo queue player from EU who was helping, just doing lane coaching. Whenever I talked to the guys, they were so determined. They were always discussing strategy. They were always sitting down and taking it really, really seriously. And they came for a Western team at this event with like the most support staff surrounding them, right? And they seemed like they had a big drive to win. And I was super impressed. And man, it paid off. They make the semifinals of the World Championship. So coming into All-Stars, you know, they win the split in Europe again, third straight time. They won every LCS season in Europe, good for them. And then we start getting these interviews, like with Cyanide, where he's like, yeah, you know, I was hungover for the scrims like the first day, and I'm kind of like sitting here, I'm like, what the fuck? Really? And then they played terribly. I mean, their play was bad during that tournament. And then at the end, what frustrated me even more was Soaz goes on Twitter and he starts saying things like, I don't know any team that's more dedicated to the game than we are. And I immediately tweet back at him. I'm like, well, you showed up hungover to this tournament. I don't think any of the other teams did. So I would say like probably every other team there sounds a little more dedicated. And he was like, well, that was just Cyanide. I'm like, yeah, but you're a team. You can't be that dedicated if you're doing this shit, man. Like there's evidence out there that says you're not. And
maybe it was a typo. Maybe he said medicated.
Medicated with liquor. But it's like, come on, Fnatic. And then he was like, well, we won all 3 splits, like, and I'm the best top laner along with Wicked in Europe. I'm like, hello, congratulations, you won all 3 splits, but you performed like crap at this event, and you've disappointed the home crowd, you've disappointed your fans. Like, just own it. Like, if you didn't practice, just say, we took a little bit of a break. It's our only break between seasons. We're going to come back and do really well at Worlds. Sorry to our fans. It's not this like crap, like, oh, we just did this really well. It's not enough to do really well in your own region anymore, Fnatic. You've done well on a world stage. You have. That's the standard that we now hold you to. So shut up and perform.
Dominic, did you have such strong feelings about the Fnatic performance?
I mean, I just feel like they're a team that plays to like the level of the stakes of the tournament, and for this tournament the stakes were like kind of low. Like it's not for like an extra spot in Worlds, it's just for like a little cash prize. And yeah, they have like won a bunch of seasons of LCS, but this was like probably their time off. As far as I understand it, like when Europeans take time off, they all leave the gaming house, so they're all just like spread out. And they just didn't seem like they played like it mattered. Like I just assumed that it didn't matter that much to them because yeah, they don't like, yeah, it would have been nice for the fans. It's something that they probably should have done for the fans, but for them personally, I think that they have like their sights set on Worlds. So I expect them to like perform better like when they make it to Worlds, and I'm confident that they'll make it there. So but yeah, I just think that they didn't perform.
Ever since Worlds, their support staff no longer exists. They got rid of everybody who I met at Worlds who seemed to really have their shit together. So maybe there was a problem with those people. I don't really know. But it's like they've been like downgrading their infrastructure and then like doing dumb shit like being hungover for their first day of scrims at All-Stars. And like I said, I get it. I get that maybe this is your vacation. But what you shouldn't do afterwards is play like trash and then tell everybody that you're the most dedicated team ever. Well, we have footage from this event where your players are saying, I was hungover. That doesn't sound like dedication to me. You know what I mean?
I just think it appeals. It just like appeals to the masses because like I just think they'd be getting even more hate if they came out and said, yeah, we just like didn't really like give a shit about this tournament. Like it didn't mean much to us. So
you don't have to say it that way. You just have to say we're sorry to the fans. We didn't prepare as much as we should have. We made a mistake. Just own it. That's fine. You needed a vacation. I get that.
I don't actually know if the preparation thing is the big deal. Like, I don't know if they really were like missing the weeks of preparation that would have made them play well here. I think actually Dominate's point might be the more salient one. Like, I get the sense that, okay, here's the problem with this tournament. you only get the 50k if you come first, and you know, like everyone knows you're not coming first unless you're like SK Telecom or like maybe OMG if they turned up and no one knew how good they were and they turned out to be way better than we thought. Really, it was only going to be like one or two teams could get the 50k, and so I almost get the sense that with the Fnatic team, like they've always been this really fucked up team in terms of motivation, where it's like the only motivation that can affect them is like they themselves have to care somehow about the game. Like it doesn't matter if we care. Like if it was a big game in LCS, okay, and it's towards the end of the season and they're playing Alliance and we're like, oh, this will decide who's going to be better in the playoffs. They don't seem to care about that somehow. All they care about is if they get into the playoffs, then they'll win the playoffs, and then it's like they turn it on somehow. But that's always a really bad mode to be in anyway, where like you only your A game is really, really good and your B, C, and D game are shit. And so unless you can turn up with your A game, you can't do it. And unfortunately, that's always been the stupid thing about Fnatic. They've always been so good when they're on, but then they can't replicate that. It's not a consistent style, you know. I think even the style of play they use, you can't do all those weird pick-offs every game and have it work, you know. I mean, they tried to do it against OMG and SK Telecom here, right? What do you think of their games that they had versus those teams here?
Well, I mean, their game against SK Telecom wasn't. I mean, it wasn't the first game where they actually were creating picks. It was because SK Telecom made a team composition where they picked for skins, and they picked in this meta. They picked Vayne, Zed, and Jax together. That doesn't work right now. I mean, besides the fact that, I mean, Fnatic didn't even run Exhaust, which was not the best choice ever in that against that composition. But playing three strong split pushers together is just not really optimal at the moment. And even then, Fnatic had a tough time. And in spite of all the kills that they got, they never actually controlled the pace or the tempo of that game. They never actually dealt damage really to inner turrets. They were just getting pressed the whole time, and they got kills, but they were unable to turn it into anything. It wasn't a close game.
Yeah, I mean, that game seemed pretty troll to me. I mean, they obviously picked for skins. They had essentially zero wave clear. I mean, you could argue Zed is wave clear, but yeah, I can't see them picking that comp versus a team that they respected. So I'm pretty sure that SK Telecom went into it assuming that they would just win the game, and it's hey, we can play anything, and you can kind of that was kind of the vibe I got from SK Telecom the whole tournament, especially when Piglet was tweeting out or said before the game oh, we're gonna use this unusual support. If you were in a world situation, you wouldn't say, oh yeah, we're gonna pick a random support and get you're the enemy team thinking about that. You'd kind of just stick to your guns and try to surprise somebody with that. So yeah, I felt SK Telecom was just really confident going into the tournament. I mean, I guess they had right to be. I mean, they were clearly the best team there, and they just proved it.
I mean, if we talk about that in general, then the weird thing is the comparison you can give for this event is to the IEM event, because we had a similar thing. Some international teams, KTB went there, they won undefeated. But actually, I think realistically, this was a different affair, because when KTB won undefeated, they came in as a slumping team, and they themselves, you could tell, wanted to prove to themselves they were still good, and they just played normally, and they beat everyone normally. Whereas at this tournament, it looked like SK Telecom, I don't think they ever thought of themselves as slumping. Okay, in Korea they know they're slumping, but they wouldn't. I don't think they ever thought we're going to lose to these foreign teams, and they came in more okay, well fuck it, we're going to style on these guys. We'll pick the skins against Fnatic, and then in the first game of the final, we'll let OMG have all their champions. Let's see what you can do with them. No one does that if it's a real opponent you think's going to beat you. You know, no one wants to go 0-1 to in a best of 5 to, and then you've given them confidence, and no one would do that. You know.
Right, and also, even if they had lost that first game, then they would have just resorted to more normal bans in the rest of the series, where they wouldn't have given up Syndra. And then, of course, in the third game, Faker picks Syndra, says after the match, in the interview, I picked Syndra to show that I was better, pretty much. I'm paraphrasing here, but to basically show that I'm better at Syndra. And then, I mean, he hasn't played Syndra in a long time, competitively. So to pick that champion, and nobody except for Kuro has been playing it in Korea on IM, so that was really bold, I think, of them, and they seem to be very confident in their ability to win that tournament, even while styling, basically.
It was like SKT of old as well. They don't have to just beat you one way. They can pick how they're going to play you, and the adaptation at all levels of the game. When you were saying about that Fnatic game, I can see, okay, why to a fan who's really hoping Fnatic can do it. He's seen them get some kills, and wow, this is getting close, man. Maybe they could get back in. You have to realize let's be real. SK Telecom was like the cat stood on the mouse's tail, letting it run a little bit away, and then they were like, "I can kill this mouse at any time, right, Monty?"
Yep, pretty much that's what I saw, because even in all their games, they always had control. They were always dictating the pace and the flow of the game. It may, to the average fan, perhaps, it may have looked like, oh, well, this other team's getting some kills, there's a chance of a comeback here. But there were no objectives being taken in response to the kills. The pressure was always on. The other team was always forced to react. The one exception was when Fnatic started doing Baron, but then they horribly misplayed that. And that Baron was not really that was a desperation Baron, and SKT knew they could 4v5 that.
Who did you think came the closest to beating SKT, Dom?
I mean, I guess like OMG game 1 of the finals, like when they were getting all those picks in the enemy jungle, that's probably like the closest anyone came. But that didn't even feel that close, to be honest. Like it honestly felt like SKT was just disrespecting them at that point, because they had no wards in their jungle and they were just like face checking like one at a time into the jungle. It was just like really weird, at least for me to watch, because like when they play like high stakes games, they're normally like a really intelligent team. Like they know where they can be and where they can't be. And it almost felt like they knew they couldn't lose, and they're just like, here, like, we're just going to keep on, like, running into our jungle and just, like, we'll beat you anytime. So, I mean, yeah, I guess that was the closest it came, but they weren't going to lose. Like, they weren't going to lose that game, so.
So since OMG came second, we should talk about them for a while. Like, coming in, had you even watched them in LPL at all, Dom? Had you seen them play at all, this new lineup?
I have watched them in LPL. I don't watch them as much as like OGN, because generally speaking, LPL is like patches behind, so it's like a lot harder to take stuff from their play and like implement it into your own. So I hadn't watched too much, but I had watched like 3 or 4 LPL games of OMG, and I'd seen how they've been doing in China.
Let's talk about that then. People always complain, justifiably, that every single time a Chinese team plays a tournament, they usually either never played the patch or they maybe got it a couple of days before or something. Do you think that plays a factor at all in how it's going for them in these international tournaments? Like, were there any drastic changes?
I think that there's like a lot of changes. Like, for example, in IEM, where they hadn't played the patch, like Kha'Zix had just received like a huge buff to the ultimate. If you saw like Insec was running like R-Evolve first Kha'Zix every single game, and if you've never played against that before, like you might not know like its strength. You could just like go into it being like, oh, it's Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is like an average level jungler in this patch. Like we can just like play like even to it, or like I think they played like Wukong like throughout that tournament, like a Wukong Yasuo comp. And yeah, they just didn't like, if you don't play against those champions, you can't really have the sense to know like how strong it's going to be in game, because you can look at the numbers. Like I'm sure they knew like what was changed about the ultimate of Kha'Zix, but I don't think that they like really had experienced how difficult that was to deal with, like how difficult it was to kill a Kha'Zix that has 50% damage reduction. So yeah, I mean, I like personally speaking, if I had never played a patch going into the tournament, I wouldn't expect to like be on an even playing field with somebody that had.
What do you think, Monty? Is it an issue?
It is an issue, unfortunately. However, I think that there were less major differences between the patches this time around. And also, it's not like they can't... First off, there were no games really leading up to this. They had the last games had already happened kind of in Korea a week previously, so that they could see basically what the Korean teams were running on the current patch. So it was, I think, less of a surprise than IEM. IEM just kind of came out of nowhere with the new patch, and the Korean teams all started running the R Kha'Zix on that weekend as well, so there wasn't really a way for them to prepare for it. But this time around, all the major 4.5 changes had been there for a while, and it was, I think, it was not optimal, but it was better than IEM, that's for sure.
I'd agree.
It was better, but it still does create problems, yes. But fundamentally, that's not the issue. The issue here is that if you actually watch OMG's games from a strategic perspective, and you watch the LPL games, and we were sitting, I've watched a lot of LPL games over the course of the season, just because I'm interested in China. But if you actually take a look at the way the Chinese teams play, it's with great mechanics, great team fighting, very poor strategy. And if you know what to look for in terms of their rotations, then you're like, why the hell are they doing this? Like, why don't they just take this tower now? There's literally a wave pressing into a tier 2 turret. The other Chinese team formed the classic Chinese, 5-man roaming gank squad, killed your top laner. And instead of just pushing the objective or going to the other side of the map to take an objective, they just kind of fall back into their own jungle. Typically, the Chinese teams ward very poorly. which was punished multiple times by SK Telecom at All Stars, where they like OMG will just, like Don was saying, just kind of wander into the jungle without any wards and face check brushes, and they play really, really risky. And against good teams, you get really punished for that. So it was funny too, because we were all all the analyst desk was basically sitting in a conference room at Riot a couple days before the event. We were all just sitting around discussing OMG, and while we were watching their games on a projector, and we were just pausing and being like, why aren't they doing this right now? Like, this is basic strategy, and they just really are dropping the ball on keeping up the pace of this game. And I think that's shown just in the average game length. Like, OMG has a very long average game length, and they've been winning, but they haven't had that same level of strategic competition. And the Chinese teams sometimes seem to have this gentleman's agreement where the game is just going to end somewhere at 35 and 40 minutes with like random 5-man team fights at Baron over and over and over again until somebody gets the Baron and wins the game. But it doesn't make any sense. They don't have a good sense of split pushing, and it was very clear from watching, especially their end of the season VODs, that this was not a team that was going to be able to beat SK Telecom.
So when we referenced game 1 of the final, which was the exciting one, where it looked like maybe OMG could turn it, there was a key moment in the game where they turn it, they push up, they get the kills on SK Telecom, and they have the choice: do we go and take the Baron, or do we go into their base? And they rush up the middle and they take the inhibitor. But in taking the inhibitor, they then get a bunch of damage that they have to pull back, and SK Telecom essentially take the Baron off that. Was that, it's easy to say now, maybe you should have done the other thing, but was that the wrong move even at the time, you think?
No, the right move was to take the inhibitor there. You don't, it's much better to take the inhibitor, let the super minions push up, and then take a freer Baron. But they did take too much poke, unfortunately, at the inhibitor. The other thing they could have done is just left the inhibitor naked, and then gone back to base and regened and tried for another push on a naked inhibitor. They may have pushed maybe a little bit too far to get that. I have to watch the VOD again to give you a more specific answer, but I think that the call to run up mid was correct.
So let me give you some counterpoint then. I want both of you to answer this. Every tournament that comes around that's an international tournament, the same storyline comes out of people who are analysts, and it goes like this. These Chinese teams, man, they don't know what they're doing. Like, they have a style, like, it doesn't make sense. They don't understand rotations. They don't do this. They don't do that. And yet every tournament, they end up doing better than everyone who isn't Korean. Like, how can they be winning in the game if they're doing it wrong? What's their advantage in that sense, do you think? I want both of you to give me a perspective.
I mean, the Chinese teams are just strategically weak, so it's hard for anybody to get better because they don't have any competition who's actually challenging them. If you don't have a team that punishes you for the errors that you make, you will never learn how to correct them.
Okay, but how are they beating Western teams then? Cloud9 have way better rotations and understanding of tactics. Fnatic, in theory, should have like a better sense for how to play certain parts of the game. How is OMG beating these teams?
From my perspective, it's more just like mechanical outplays and just like for example, when you see like a Chinese team go into like a 3v3 skirmish, like they'll chain their CC like really well. They'll come in from different angles and they'll play the fight well. And I mean, if you win enough fights, you're able to like do the basics. Like, it's not like their strategy is so bad that if they like win, like if they like get 3 free kills, they're gonna like be able to like get a bear and they're gonna be able to like push down and inhib or something like that. So I just think that they're really strong mechanically. And yeah, that throws a lot of Western teams off. Like if they lose like fight after fight, they're just gonna end up losing the game. So,
yep.
What do you think?
That's pretty much it. And also, I think that Cloud9 actually, first off, they won the first game. OMG didn't really look like they were trying that hard in the first game that they played in groups. That said, the second game, in the first game of the semifinals, I feel Cloud9 had got of their lane swap. They played the lane swap way better, and if they hadn't grouped at the Dragon with their Jax and they should have been split pushing, like, they should have just kept splitting, and they should not have fought that Dragon. They should just let OMG have the Dragon. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, you're already ahead in the game. You have the split push pressure. Your top laner is Jax. Your top laner is winning. Just keep splitting, and instead they chose a dumb fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it it was them like trying to like force like super hard. Like if you saw like how the TP came in, it wasn't like they just TP'd down like with the intention of like, yeah, we just want to like take this dragon fight. They TP'd down like on a Zyra plant with the intention of like fighting the enemy. They were thinking like, oh, he's rooted TP in like on the plant, maybe you're able to like get off a Jack stun, like get a pick. Like they were trying to like reach and make like the big play instead of just like doing the strategically solid thing. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of just like a weird situation. They were looking for a pick there, and it just like kind of turned into like, oh, okay, you're here now, like let's do dragon because it's right here. And yeah, they were in an awful position from it. Sneaky was like off to the side. They just ended up like turning on him, killing him, and just snowballing through the fight. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And also they didn't punish Sun. Sun actually played the flank really well on Lucian for the AD carry too. So I mean, they played that team fight beautifully, and that's the thing, is OMG is very, very good at team fighting, and they're very good at positioning. That's not how you beat them. You beat them by forcing them to make mistakes in their decision-making about where they're going to go on the map. That's how you beat them. And they are quite beatable in that regard.
Am I lagged at all? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, maybe it's just me that gets to lag. Okay. Okay, let's talk about some of the OMG players then, because a lot of these players, people in the West haven't seen at all. So the big hype coming into this tournament was this XiYang guy, the guy who plays the mid lane, because obviously people remember how good Cole was at the World Championships, and everyone's hearing like, oh, this guy's supposedly the MVP this season in China, and yeah, in the games they did well, it felt like he looked awesome, right? But in the games they lost, I mean, what do you think of him overall?
To me, it looked like he was tilting a little bit as the series, especially the finals against SK Telecom, went on. But he also made some really bizarre decisions. Like, I'm not sure how you... Basically, he played really strangely in the first game against Cloud9, where he tried to, like, steal a blue buff with Glitter Lance and lost the first few minions. And then, because of that, managed to actually lose the matchup against Link, even though he was Lulu and playing into a Nidalee. That was a little bit surprising. So it was just dumb that he was trying to steal a blue with Glitter Lance that early on. I think he was a bit cocky in that regard. And then I think he just like mega tilted. And he also has a pretty small champion pool, all things considered. So
I mean, I viewed him as like a pretty stereotypical like Chinese player. Like he's looking to make the big play because yeah, like in retrospect, like you should probably not be going for that blue, but he had a ward on it and he just wanted to like cheese Meteos. Like if he does like somehow like get that blue, if Meteos like misses a smite, then yeah, he's super far ahead in lane. Like then he has like a blue buff, he's able to like push in the Nidalee and able to just like get a huge CS lead. So yeah, like it's kind of just like the way they play. Like if you watch like Chinese players, like I'd say that a Chinese jungler is like probably like the most likely to like get like a smite steal or something like that because they're just like looking for the big play, and they'll take like almost every opportunity to get it. But yeah, like I think that he's like mechanically solid. Like you saw like some of his Syndra plays, he hit some really nice Syndra stuns. Like he's able to like mechanically perform, but yeah, his decision making is like questionable at times.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's a really good talk about Chinese play, which is that it's very high risk yet low reward, where they will they'll just face check a bush with 3 people and hide to try and create a pick on the bottom lane on one person. But if all 3 of those people pick the wrong bush and then die, then it's a free Baron for the other team. I mean, it's very strange.
I mean, some of them are like high risk, low reward. I'd say like some of them are like high risk, high reward. Like for example, the blue steal, like it's high risk because you're very unlikely to get it, but if you do get that blue buff, like you're able to just like make the Nidalee's life hell. You can easily push in the wave, and then Nidalee just has to last 10 on her turret for like the first like 3-4 levels, and you're just gonna like have like a 15-20 CS lead out of it. So I wouldn't say it's all high risk, low reward, but yeah, I mean most of it's just like high risk in general.
Even though this guy did well, like in the first game, he was impressive on Syndra. One of the things I've been waiting for whenever anyone internationally plays Faker is I'm waiting for the guy who actually really in his mind does believe he's better than Faker and will just go straight head to head with him. Because I notice everyone sort of starts like that. Like this, if they've never played Faker, they think like, oh, I'll see how it goes. Maybe he's just another normal player. And then when they start getting beaten, they all just like try to go super safe. And it looks like they all just think like, it reminds me of how Shifter played at the end of Coast, where when he knew they were losing the game, he would just like never allow himself to be in a situation where he would just get killed outright. He would always just try and like look for a kill if it's there. If not, just play like safe and then just try and like minimize the damage control aspect. Do you think the XiYang guy actually stood toe to toe with Faker well at all in this tournament?
You go first, Monte.
I don't think he really held up to Faker. No, I think Faker crushed him. I think you just look at the first game that they played too, when he played Ziggs into Faker's Orianna. That's a matchup he should win, and he got crushed in lane. He got crushed.
I think that there's people that can match up to like Faker mechanically, or like could potentially like win a lane in that sense. But I think the thing that makes Faker so special is that he is like that like incredible sense of like the macro game on top of being a great mechanical player. Like if you see like the way Faker works, like he's really intelligent about the game, and like that's how I feel like he outplays like a lot of the people. Like maybe he'll go even in lane sometimes, maybe he'll be even in CS, but he'll always like be on top of like knowing when to roam, knowing like when to ward, like just mind gaming people like with things like half roams and then coming back to lane, just like knowing like all the different like tricks and like how to manipulate vision and everything. So yeah, I mean that's why I think Faker has like been like, I guess maybe he's not arguably the best mid laner in Korea right now, but he's been one of the best mid laners in the world for like such a long time, is because of his great sense for like the macro game.
Yeah, not only that, but he has an amazing ability, even when he's killed in lane, to keep up in terms of CS and also become relevant in the late game. You can camp him, you can kill him 2 or 3 times in lane, but he'll still have enough CS and he'll still have the same sense in team fights about how to play it in order to make himself maximally valuable, which is crazy.
So one of the things as well that was interesting was there was actually, because, okay, Faker, I mean, he's a young guy, you have to remember, in Korean society. He doesn't come off like a cocky person, okay? And he always shakes the opponent's hand, and he always does that bullshit that I actually hate, where you just lie in videos, like, no, I think actually a Link might be as good as me in this game. Like, just make up shit just because, fans want to hear it. But actually what's funny is I think he's, like, cocky in a good way. Like, he's the kind of cocky where he doesn't need to just, like, tell you he's the best. He just, like, wrecks you in whatever style he wants. And then, because he's already won in the game, and he's won by people thinking he's better, then by being humble, then, like, even his opponents practically fucking bow to him and are like, yeah, you're the best, Faker. So it's like he just wins in every single respect possible. Like, that's the best way to be cocky, when everyone else is telling you you're the greatest, And other people are literally, dude, other professional gamers are like, oh, it's cool. I mean, I got a kill on him in that game, so pretty good game for me. Just like, these are the best teams in the world, dude. This isn't like a little kid that will let him play Michael Jordan one-on-one. This is like his peers. Like, the guy just wins. Oh, another player on OMG I thought we should talk about was Allan, the guy who used to be called Lovelin. Because I remember at Worlds, he'd switched to jungler, and he was impressive at Worlds as a jungler. And here, I mean, his thresh here was nuts, right?
It was nuts, but his other champions were not great. His Annie was too aggressive, got caught out engaging, and his Nami was not good.
I mean, I think that like, yeah, he's mechanically solid. I just like I don't really understand like why they made the transition, because from my perspective, Pamela was doing fine as a support and Loveland was like a beast jungler. Like when I looked at like Worlds, I was like, wow, this guy is probably like top 2, top 3 junglers at the tournament. So it's just so weird to me that they just like took him out of his role and made him a support. But I guess maybe it had something to do with shot calling. I have no idea. But yeah, it was just weird to me because I thought he was like a world-class jungler, like really like one of the best.
So on that topic then, to tie these two things together, Monty was saying before about the terrible vision control, the really bad objective control by the Chinese teams. And like you said there, Loveland looked really good when he was at jungle in the World Championships. Well, I've noticed there does seem to be a trend that there's something off with Chinese jungling, because Pomelo here, just very strange what he was doing. I'm thinking of even Royal Club, the ones who got to the final. Lucky was probably the weakest player on their team. What do you think about Chinese jungling?
The weakest player on that team.
What do you think as a jungler, Dominate?
I don't know. I thought Loveland was actually, he seemed like he was like better at vision control as a jungler than as a support. Like if you watch the way he played like a bunch of like weird junglers. He played like Yorick at the time, and he was like all about like getting deep wards, like having like constant pressure on the enemies, and it seems like he kind of like lost that as a support, because if you watch like other sports, like for example Lemon Nation will just like roam out of the lane and he'll just like go to your blue buff and ward it like level 5. Like he'll just go there and just get deep wards and make sure he has vision control. But it didn't seem like Loveland did anything like special with warding like the way he used to do it in the jungle, because I actually thought like that was what made him such a good jungler. He is like the perfect mix of like aggression, like knowing when to gank lanes, and then on top of that like vision control and just constant pressure through like one form or another, whether it be like diving or just like getting a ward on your wraiths to see you. He was just really good at like being able to understand what he could do to just like mess with the enemy's heads like at all time.
And let's talk about the semi-finals then. So the first semi-final, SK Telecom versus Fnatic, that was like embarrassing almost, wasn't it? That this is supposed to be the best European team playing not even the best Korean team, right?
Yep, that was what it was supposed to be.
Yep. I mean, I kind of expected it. I expected it. I don't know. I think that like the top level Korean teams are just like that far ahead right now. So, I mean, I didn't really take too much out of it. It wasn't like when I watched that game, I was like, wow, Fnatic is like horrible, because like they'd been playing pretty much that same level of the tournament. And if you saw like SKT was playing, it was pretty obvious that they were gonna like crush them. So. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I didn't
Fnatic was very underwhelming at this tournament, and I think SK Telecom did step up their game a little bit. They looked slightly better than what I saw in Korea, for the most part. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how they perform once they get back there. But they had some tough losses.
Tough to judge. For me, it felt tough to judge, because yeah, like I won't really know until I see them playing like a Najin Shield or like Samsung Ozone, like one of like the top Korean teams right now. I still feel like would be ahead of SKT, but I mean, I guess it could be like a little bit of a confidence boost.
I would say SK Telecom probably is in. If I had to like do a Korean power rankings immediately, I'd probably put them somewhere between 4th and 6th.
Yep, I was thinking 5th. That's what I was thinking.
5th, yeah, somewhere in that range. You know, probably below Blaze. Yeah, maybe 5th. Like below Blaze, Shield, Blue, and Ozone sounds pretty reasonable.
So that's a key topic, though, because if you remember, we had the same storyline repeat, which was KTB came into IEM doing badly, sweep the whole tournament, beat Gambit convincingly, beat Fnatic convincingly. So everyone's like, oh, actually, maybe they've turned it around and they go back. But then you go back to Korea, and it was the same again. Maybe they were a little bit better, like they did well against Shield, but ultimately they hadn't gone back to the old level that the IEM maybe told you they did. And it does feel the same here, where like, you can't just look at this and go, oh, like someone who's watched Worlds might watch this tournament here if they don't watch OGN and be like, oh, well, standard, you know, SK Telecom's still the best in the world. Like, no, they're not even top 2 Korea now. Like, even if the matchups are different, like I think maybe OGN would have been different in terms of if different teams played each other, but I still think it's hard to put SK Telecom in the top 3 just off what you saw there. Because what challenge do they have that would prove it, you know?
If you look at the way that the quarterfinals played out, I actually don't know who would have. I think any of the teams would have beaten SK Telecom in the shape of the quarterfinals, because, okay, who do we have? I think Samsung Blue would have beaten them. Ozone did beat them. KT Arrows had a winning record against them going in and had looked strong. They were up 3-1 over the course of the spring season. I think Blaze would have won.
Shield would have won too.
Shield would have won. KT Bullets, maybe the KT Bullets would not have won. Maybe they would not have won.
It would have been like close match.
Frost beat them 3-1 in a best of 5 in the semifinals of NLB, so maybe KT Bullets wouldn't have won. Maybe.
So actually then, let me think about how we think of this tournament then. So in that case, people always want to draw such extreme conclusions from a really small amount of data, okay? And so the thing they're going to do here is, if there's someone who likes the Korean scene and they think that the Western teams don't work hard enough, or any of those things that are like judgment calls that people bring into it, they're going to say, like they did after IEM, like the joke of like, oh, so the 8th best Korean team just beat all the best Western teams. Like how much is there some truth to like maybe the 5th best Korean team just stomped everyone in the West, and how much is it that like SK Telecom is better than we thought, or something was wrong with these teams here? What do you think? How would you weigh it up?
Well, something was wrong with the teams here. Fnatic, we talked about this. They didn't practice very hard for this event. I mean, I went on my rant about Soaz and his attitude and everything like that. And then Cloud9 had a sub. OMG was, I think, overhyped and not as good as they were said to be coming into the event, which was clear if you watched their games, but not a lot of people did, and they just kind of bought onto the hype. And then Type A Assassins was a team that doesn't get good practice in a weak region.
Well, actually, let me just pick you up on the Fnatic thing. I think there's something more we can say about that. The Fnatic thing is really difficult for me to judge because, right, when I say it's true they don't practice enough and they don't practice the right way, the problem is I can't limit that to Fnatic. I'm just saying about Fnatic because they were the best from Europe and they get to represent them here. I think that applies to almost every Western team. Now, maybe it's possible now some of the teams in NA are a bit more, like the Cloud9s, etc., are more dedicated. I could believe that. But I think in general, the same flaws Fnatic have are flaws that nearly all these teams have to some degree. Like, just not good enough scouting or analysis and these different things. And unfortunately, I think the problem with Fnatic is they're like the epitome of that. Because they're so good at this one style of play and their lineup is so filled with talent that they're not forced to have like a super consistent style and do this every game. Each game a different player is going to do a really good job and he's going to get and it picks it up and it means that overall you're going to win. And so there should be criticisms leveled, but at the same time, like, this will sound like an abstract point, but if it's really okay, so Tabs from Alliance made this case. You know, Fnatic just sort of were an example of the problems in Europe right now. People don't practice enough, or they stop practicing when it's the break, and they don't come back again, and they're not dedicated enough, and they just pick it up when they have to, and nobody's pushing the pace essentially. Or okay, if that's true, Tabs, and that's true everyone else in Europe watching now, then all you guys have to do is don't tell Fnatic that secret, because they don't know, remember. You guys just do what you're saying, buckle down, get an analyst, practice properly, and let's see if you can beat Fnatic. Because so far, I don't think you could, even if you did that, because Fnatic has all the talent, they have the style when it's on. Like, I don't think it's as simple as that. I think it's like people need a bit of both. What do you think on this topic?
Who's going to be the analyst? It's like, that's the first thing that comes to mind, is because it's so hard to find people that are like, that have experience, that like understand the game on like a high enough level to like give you like constructive insight. I know firsthand because at Curse, we have one analyst, Mark, who helps us a lot, and then we had an analyst before named Roman, who couldn't really provide feedback, and we tried to have him as an authoritative figure where he would tell us what to play and like how to play and what to do, but it simply didn't work because he didn't have the game knowledge to back it up. I remember specifically in a scrim we went into with the mentality of like, all right, you must meet these guidelines, and what he told me was, as Lee Sin in a Kate Sunna lane, I had to go bot level 3 and siege the turret, just hardcore siege it. Like that was my goal for the game. And going into the game, I knew it was going to happen. The enemy jungler is obviously going to come and kill me, but yeah, like I was forced to pretty much like go through with this like plan or whatever. And yeah, it just like failed miserably and it was just like a waste of a scrim. So it's hard to find like analysts that are able to like actually give positive impact and also like mold the players and like give the players some guidance like on like what they should be doing, because in NA at least like most of the players have like authority over the analysts. Like the players are going to play how they want to play, and the analysts will just kind of be there to like give suggestions. So
Monty?
Yeah.
I can't say exactly how hard it is. I think the problem is that there are people out there who can help. I think it's weeding through the applications and how do you find this person in the first place and how do you trust them. I've never had to do that, so I guess I don't really know the difficulty of it. It sounds like Curse has had some more problems as opposed to CLG, but it is hard to find somebody who can be an analyst for a team. But that's not an excuse. I think, Thorin, you tweeted very well. Bad players become good players. You know, a good player always starts as a bad player, and a good coach is going to start as a bad coach, right? And I'm still learning about coaching and all of that other stuff. I don't pretend to be the best coach in the world, not by a long shot. There are people who have 10 years of experience coaching esports. I don't have that, right? So you have to be able to give people a chance, though, in order to develop and prove themselves and continue working with the teams. And in EU, it's silly. It is silly to say that there is nobody out there. You can find that person. It may take a lot of work, and it may take a lot of sifting through some bullshit, but you can find them.
I mean, the problem that I have is like with how competitive the league is, or not how competitive it is, but how high the stakes are. Like, do you really have time to give like a coach like 4 weeks of potential failure before you like make a change? Because like from our perspective, like when you're in 7th place and you're like on the verge of like relegation, you don't really have that much time to like wait for this coach to become a good coach. So yeah, I don't really know if you like if it's like possible to like go through it like that. And I mean, I guess like when it comes to like sifting through applications, like maybe you can find that person, but there have been 70 plus people that have just sent in applications to Curse, and even by weeding out like all of them and just getting like the top 3 or whatever, you still have issues. So it just seems like it seems like it's a lot harder than people think it is to find somebody that actually has like enough like knowledge and experience to coach a team.
So I think Dom's made the 2 key points here that actually is what's stopping everyone, which is this: authority from the players to listen to the manager or coach guy, and then secondly, the idea that if you use the coach and it goes badly, then you wish like, oh fuck, I wish we hadn't used the coach, like let's abandon that, go back to what we were doing. Like those are the 2 key points, because think about it this way. Part of the reason why I think the Korean system works is because they have a hierarchy, and within the hierarchy, people won't like this, but the player is at the bottom of the hierarchy because it's an organization, okay, and there's the guys who run the organization and they like provide the money, and then the guy below them is the coach who has to answer to them for why the team's doing badly, and then the players have to answer to the coach for how their performance is okay. The reason why that structure is key is because I always give this example. Okay, so we all know when Shai joined Frost, he really quickly became like the best top player in the whole world. He was like the star of their team. But because he was the brand new player in their team, I'll guarantee you at no point in time behind closed doors, even when he became the best, did he ever order people around or say, I'm not doing that strategy, or no, I don't think that's a good idea? He was still bottom of the rung. He was still just a player. And so the coaching staff, it's their job to like figure out the strategy and to figure out how to make these guys work and to take feedback from players, but to give the overall strategy and like, this is what we're going to practice, this is what we're going to do. And so if you have that structure, then okay, in this example where Dominate was giving here, where this guy gave him bad advice, okay, it's true. Even though in that case, I can totally understand that was bad advice. That same attitude, though, is how most players would react. That's how Fnatic would react if I brought in an analyst, okay? Even if he was giving good advice, if it was something they hadn't thought of or it wasn't something they initially knew, they weren't certain it would work, they would have that kind of response, okay? They'd sort of be like, oh, like, I don't want to do that. Like, why is this guy telling me to do this? Like, it's not going to work. Like, I know, let me just do what I'm going to do, okay? And so in the second part, this is what the key thing to connect is. The only way you're going to get that sort of hierarchy is by just deciding that's what you're going to have. Like, that'll sound strange. Like, I'm just going to decide. So, okay, I'm going to put in this coach over Dominate in Curse now. And like Dominate's saying, he'll have the first 4 weeks, this guy might suck, okay? And so they're going to lose a lot of games. But because I've decided that having a coach in the long run is better than not having a coach, I'm just committed that we're going to find a coach. It might not be this guy, in which case if he doesn't make it, it's like any sport. We fire that coach and we get a new coach that we think can do it. But the answer could never be just never have a coach, because we can see in the long run you're going to have one, aren't you, if you're going to beat these Koreans and these Chinese, etc., etc. So I think like these are all good points, but these are like short-term points. Like in the long run, you have to create the position of coach. And then listen, if the guy I have now doesn't work, fire him, get a new guy. And by the way, just by having a position that we pay, eventually someone's going to come along who is good, or people are even going to think, right, well, that guy gets paid more than me, and I'm a good coach for Coast, for example, and I know the Coast guy gets more than me, so I'll offer my services when the season ends or something. Like, it'll create a position and then a competition will exist for it. Like, am I being too utopian and idealistic to think this could work, Dom?
It's just the short term matters too much for like LCS at least, because if you don't perform in the short term, if you have like a bad 10 weeks under a coach, then you get relegated and your job is over. So yeah, like most teams would rather just go with what works, like go with something that you know is going to get you or like keep you in the LCS, then have this like idealistic like coach and then just have it like fail and just like potentially like lose your job. And I mean, yeah, like if you lose your LCS job, like everything else is gone too. So yeah, I don't know. I think that if like there was like more like safety in the LCS, if like teams knew like, hey, if we have a bad split, we'll still be here next split, then yeah, teams would be more willing to like fully buy into a system like that. But yeah, as a player, it's just there's too much on the line. Like when you're in 7th place, it's like, all right, well, this is some bad advice. I'd rather just like play Vi and try to like go off in LCS. Like that's
Okay, so
like what becomes like the mentality.
on the first point though, that idea, let's just ask you straight up. If someone gave you advice for a match, who even was the coach or whatever position he's in, if you didn't agree with it yourself on some core level, you wouldn't do it, or you wouldn't do it fully, or you wouldn't be able to buy into it, right?
It depends on like how safe I was at the time. Like for example, if I was like on a top 2 team like Cloud9 or TSM, and I knew going into the playoffs, there's no chance that I was gonna like lose my job, because that's the real thing that most pro players in NA and EU fear, is like getting relegated and losing your job. If there was like the safety that it wasn't like going to determine potentially like the rest of your league career, then yeah, I would be fully willing to like buy in. Like sure, like tell me what to do. Like if you want me to just like do 2 buffs and then run and get a deep ward at rates, like I'll do it. Like I'll do whatever if there's safety involved. But yeah, if it still is that type of like unsurety when it comes to like your job, I probably wouldn't be able to do it.
Do you actually buy the concept though? Do you actually believe there could be like, okay, you know this is the bias players have. A lot of players think, well, if he's worse than me at the game, come on, how could he possibly know what I know? Do you actually buy that there are analysts who could have a better overview than you? I mean, I'm not asking like to make it like you don't believe, but
yeah.
do you just get the sense that
I believe that could be. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that there are people out there that have better overview. And yeah, like for example, if Montecristo was my coach, and like I knew that like that he has like experience and he understands the game on a fundamental level, I'd be more willing to buy in. So I feel like for CLG this is like less of a problem than for like the other teams. Like I don't think TSM really has like an analyst and coach. Like yeah, they have Reggie there to like give them advice, but they don't have somebody there that's gonna like that's gonna really like shape the entire game. So yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's just like a problem in the West.
Well, to be fair, I'm not in the CLG house all the time either, and so I have to do everything remotely and stuff like that. It's not an ideal situation for CLG either. That's just the way it is.
I don't think it's ideal, but I think the content is probably better.
Well, the thing about it though is that what's very interesting about I think being an analyst as opposed to being a pro player is that you have an advantage where you just first off, analysts, in my opinion, generally speaking, should play the game very little, because your entire time should be spent watching film, because you have to cultivate a skill set that is different from the pro gamers. You don't need mechanics to be a great analyst. You need to be able to watch as much film as possible because while your players are playing solo queue, you have to be sitting there being like, this is a champion that was used in this region. Why was it used in this region? This is what I'm seeing in lane swaps in this region. Why was it? And you need to break it down into bite-sized pieces to feed to the players so that they can play solo queue and focus on the mechanical aspects of the game and playing the game and get the necessary information without having to watch 8 hours of VODs. That's the goal as an analyst, in my opinion.
I just think it's yeah, I feel like it's hard for a lot of analysts to get from like point A to point B, because if you look at like an NA scrim, the things that are being done are on such a lower level than, for example, like an OGN game. So when you try to make that transition, it's hard for people to like break it down. Like these are like the baby steps. Like this is how you get to like this level of gameplay, and yeah, like that's what I feel like a lot of people are suffering from, like, or a lot of like analysts are just like not able to do is break it down to the point where players can like understand, because you can like say like, okay, well in this situation, like this is what like Najin Shield did, but if you're not like setting it up, if you're just like playing like a ridiculous early game and you like don't really know how to like control waves and like people are freezing on you and you're just in this horrible situation, you're not going to really be able to execute or like understand everything on like that high of a level. So
it's true, but yeah, it's true. That's true. But I think you still have to have somebody who's there who's trying to push these changes through at the very least, because that's ultimately what makes the difference. And even if you have to start with baby steps or little things, it's just like introducing those things like piece by piece at a time that gets everything really rolling. So I also think that a lot of analysts just they want to play the game too much. Like I said, I think that's the thing is I haven't played this in League of Legends in 3 or 4 months. I don't play the game. I just watch the pros play. That's all I do. You know.
Well, it's like, have you ever seen? I've seen interviews where now will say, especially the North American ones, will be like, oh, I play like 3 or 4 hours of solo queue a day. And they say it almost as if that was like preparation for their job. And I just think like that has nothing to do with your job, mate. Like, yeah, okay, to know the names of the chat, the abilities and stuff, that might help the recall, you know. But actual analysis, if you're the commentator, if you'd have watched games in the same amount of hours, you'd have probably had a way better basis to do your job this week, you know.
Well, yes and no. I think that if you do play the game more, you have a better idea of like ability interactions or little things about champions that I just don't know. And that's where I learn a lot actually from the pro players, is in these little details in lane matchups. So they'll be like, this is how I skill because at level 4 in this matchup it does that. I don't know that because, again, I don't get to watch replays, right? We don't have replays in League of Legends. What I'm watching is film. And what I'm focused on is vision, map movement, and lane assignments. That's what I'm interested in, and how and minion waves, and how all this plays out. That's the knowledge that I get, and that's the knowledge that I have. So I rely on the pro players to learn more about these more micro details and be able to play those moves out properly.
So I have a good topic for both of you here, which ties into the problems the West has had and analysts and the problems of Fnatic particularly. So from doing interviews, I've had interviews with players from Alliance, NIP, and Dignitas over different periods of time, and all of them told me the same story, which is that the practice in the West goes like this. In Europe especially, this is a big problem. You know those two teams, Alliance and then this NIP team and Challenger, who both did badly at certain parts of the seasons, but part of the reason why they couldn't improve was Alliance and NIP were both winning every scrim, to the extent that they would dominate laning phase so hard, teams would always just quit after 10 minutes. And so what would happen is they'd get like 6 kills up, the team would just quit. And they're winning every scrim. Well, guess what? In the real game, when you don't go 6-0 up, they then hadn't practiced for what to do. And they didn't know what to do at 25 minutes when it's a close game and you're 2 kills behind, you have a 4k goal deficit. They don't know what to do then. And so I heard the same story from Cutie Pie and Dignitas. He told me if they ever played a scrim out and at level 1 it completely went to shit, then they would just remake the scrim. And Vulcan told me last season that if they played Cloud9 and someone even died at level 1, they'd just remake the scrim and go, right, well, that wouldn't happen in real games, let's restart. Like, isn't this a bad system for practice? I can get, like, you don't want to waste a whole practice on a totally fucked up scrim, but does this really happen that often, Dominate? I can't imagine that happens in Korea, money.
Yeah, it happens a ton. Like, for example, we had a set of, or we had a period where we were scrimming, like, XDG a lot during the season, and maybe in like a 2-hour block, we'd get in 6 different games because every game would literally go to the 10-minute mark, and then one team would like forfeit, or they would forfeit in this case, like almost every single game. So it just felt like yeah, like you're not going to be able to like understand. Like, yeah, that's why I feel like the late game is so bad for like a lot of NA teams, is because you never hit late game in like scrims. Like one team's like dominating, and then they just like the other team ends up forfeiting when it gets out of hand.
Is there no way to make them play properly? Just say we're going to play a best of 3, we're going to play it all out here.
I mean, it's pretty much just like threatening them. It's like, all right, well, if you keep on forfeiting at 10 minutes, we're not going to scrim you anymore. That's like really like the only way that it's handled in NA. And yeah, like generally speaking, I mean, generally speaking, it does kind of just lessen the degree of like of people that just like forfeit the scrims. Like you'll be able to like get a little bit later into the scrim, but it doesn't really mean much, because a lot of times, like, yeah, if the game is that stompy, like, you won't hit the late game no matter what. Like, yeah, you can play out the extra 10 minutes, but if, like, it's 10-0, like, yeah, the game's just going to be closed out anyway, so, yep.
Thoughts, Monty?
Yeah, it is a problem, but I think if you have somebody there who's encouraging, you can always, as a team, control the lack of surrenders, and sometimes this happens in scrims with CLG, and I just say, play it out. You know, this may happen in a game, and we need to learn how to get back from this. And in a scrim environment, you typically can come back from that, because people will make mistakes in that environment. They'll overplay, they'll try and test their limits, and it's not that big of a deal, actually.
Because here's the funny thing, I even think it contributes into teams in the West thinking about the game the wrong way, because they're so obsessed with how the opening 10 minutes goes that if any mistake happens there, it's like they have a get out of jail free card for losing the game. They're like, well, what happened was, you know, they snowballed off 2 kills and it got out of control and all this. It's like, listen, mate, this isn't season 2. Nobody's snowballing off 2 kills. Like, you had to still make 10 bad decisions. Even if they had a slight lead, you know, you still made a bunch of bad decisions to lose this game. Well, the funny thing is, there's an analogy in chess, actually, where supposedly in chess, because the most mapped out area of the game is the opening moves, because you're only going to do like 4 things in a row and he's going to do 3 things in response. People who are beginners get way too obsessed with trying to learn the perfect opening, and they want to know, like, if he does that move there, what would be the perfect move to do to him? And so there's even entire magazines dedicated just to, like, here's the newest openings and, like, here's what the pros are doing now. And people spend all their time doing that, but supposedly the really good chess teachers do the opposite. They take you to the end of the game where you've got like 3 pieces each, and they say, right, play this out now. And there's so few pieces that you have to just learn the variables of, like, what is the principle here? Not like what is the specific move, like A follows B. It's like how would I make the decision? And that's the sort of thing that, like, it sounds like in these scrims you never getting the chance to do. Like, how could anyone even know how to do a comeback if they've never practiced it, right?
What I really desperately wish League of Legends had was, you know, in StarCraft you can resume from replay, where you can take a game at a specific point in time and then put 2 players in it and then resume from that specific point in time. I desperately wish that we could get some of these kind of late game scenarios where we have 2 teams that could enter a scrim and play out a big difference in gold or certain situations with certain team compositions, and just try and figure out new ways to play the late game without actually having to go through the early steps every time. That would be fucking amazing.
I mean, there's like that whole concept of just being able to, like, kind of control a situation is prevalent in NA. Like, there's teams that run what they call, like, drills. Like, for example, where it's like, all right, everyone just, like, go to lane, like, farm for like 7 minutes, like, don't do anything crazy, and then we're just gonna, like, enter, like, a dragon fight, like the 7-minute dragon. It's just gonna all be, like, based off, like, vision control and like warding and, like, if you can get the pick and, like, everything like that. But yeah, it seems like too hard to, like, replicate, like, a late game scenario. Like how would you potentially do that? It's like, all right, so we're gonna just farm for 45 minutes and then we're gonna, like, Baron fight. Like, that doesn't really make sense. So it's just like, yeah, there's no way to, like, replicate the late game, like, easily. You can replicate the early game, like, a little bit easily if you just do something like, all right, farm for 7 minutes and go to the dragon fight, but you can't really replicate the late game.
So me and Monty had talked about this before, so I want to put this to you first, Dominate. One of the things we've always talked about after every international tournament Cloud9 plays at is, like, listen, I don't know about Monty, but I'm actually a big fan of Cloud9. I think they're awesome. Like, I love their approach. I love the fact that even without having, like, all-stars at every position, they can still be really good. They can dominate NA, okay, because they're just, like, tactically, they're just so on top of things. But then when I see them every single time in national competition, I get the same sense, which is those other teams either as good tactically, and so they outskill them, or they might be a little bit worse tactically, the OMG team, but having so much more skill still allows them to make up that deficit. Like, I can't see what Cloud9 can do to put themselves higher in the world rankings. Like, to me, they're sort of maxed out in a way. I mean, am I off base?
I think that I don't know. I don't think that gives them, like, enough credit as players. Like, they are decently mechanically skilled, and they don't make, like, perfect decisions, like, every time in regards to, like, rotations or, like, strategy. So yeah, I mean, I think they can still improve strategically from even where they're at. So yeah,
they can. And not only that, but we have to remember that they did leave the groups in 2nd place at All-Stars without High. And I do think they would have beaten OMG in the semifinal had High been there.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so think of
the skilled player.
Think of the top 8 teams at Worlds last year, right? To get into the top 4, you can see the sort of teams you're gonna have to beat here to get top 4 at a Worlds. Like, how could Cloud9 do it? Like, if they played a Royal Club, they played. Okay, so beat Fnatic. That's the only one, really, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's who they ended up playing. So yeah, they just needed to, like, beat Fnatic. They would have been top 4, I guess, technically. I don't know if that means that they would have been able to, like, beat OMG in the series, but yeah, like, the way it played out, if they beat Fnatic, like.
But I mean, if they played OMG, if they played Royal Club, if they played Najin Sword, SK Telecom, these teams are all going to beat them, right?
I don't think they would have. I don't. Yeah, they probably would have lost to like all those teams at that time. But I don't think that it's like inconceivable that they could potentially like beat a Chinese team. Like I think that they could win versus a Chinese team at Worlds through strategy. So
I think they could too, and I think that at the time my answer is yes. But right now, if you had to ask me if Worlds was going to happen right now, I would say Cloud9 has a strong possibility of beating every European, North American, and Chinese team and Southeast Asian team. I think only the Koreans would really give them a hard time right now.
I agree.
So as we go forwards from this tournament, what do you think the sweeping conclusions you should draw from it are? Do you have any that come to mind?
Sure, I've got a really fun one that'll make people go crazy. I think that come Worlds, North America is going to be the second best region behind Korea.
Monty, please stop ruining yourself in these prediction competitions. You're making everyone look bad. You're making bad people go ahead of you. What are you doing to me here? What do you think of that statement, Dominic?
I do believe it. I think NA is getting a lot stronger, and that strategically, in terms of strategy and map movements and rotations, NA teams are better than Chinese teams. They are. And as long as they can match them individually in terms of skill, and I think that with the strengthening of teams in this region over this split and the addition of some more foreign players who are very mechanically good, who can add a lot to the team fighting and the skirmishing, that NA will be in a very, very good place come Worlds.
I mean, I think it's conceivable. I could also see it going the other way. I could see it going like the way where like Chinese teams come in and they just are mechanically skilled enough to beat everyone except for the Koreans. So I mean, I don't really like have too distinctive like prediction, but yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think that NA is going to be like the worst region there, like everyone thinks, or like how most people think. So
I think Europe's in big trouble. I think Europe is.
Europe's in trouble. I mean, it's really because. Go ahead.
So I actually think that I think it's more like the second thing that Dominate said there. Like here's the big problem I see. I think you're giving NA too much credit for Cloud9. Like, listen, Cloud9, I agree, could be every team in the world who isn't Korean. Like, the real Cloud9 with high and actual practice and going in. Like, I just think they're that good a team. But the big problem I see for all the other NA teams and most of the EU teams, if they play the Chinese teams, is like every game, when I watched all those fucking Cloud9 games, half the reason they won was even if they had a deficit, because Cloud9 had slightly better team fighting, every NA team gave them every team fight. Like if they want to have a fight, well, the team's like, great, we've got a slight lead, fight them. And then Cloud9 would just win the fucking team fight. Every single time it was like 20 minutes on, every team, it was like them sending an invitation like, Cloud9, you are officially invited to the team fight around Dragon now. And they'd be like, cool, well, we'll just turn it and win that one then. And so the problem is these Chinese teams love to team fight. So even if they're behind, if they're more mechanically skilled, like fucking who is it going to be? Like TSM, CLG, they're just going to be like, hey, cool, let's fight them now at Dragon. Like none of them are going to play some like disengaged comp and just not fight and just take. They're not going to play your perfect game, Monty, where they take like 2 towers and China's just all over the jungle doing anything. That's not going to happen.
It will happen, I believe. The other possibility, of course, is that China is going to get much better strategically during that same period because they certainly have the building blocks to do it. I don't think they can improve just because there isn't a team that actually has like top level strategy in that region. I don't think it's possible for the region as a whole to really improve quickly enough before Worlds because there's nobody to learn from over there right now, and the average level is not good. So,
well, let's talk about NA for a while then, since we've got Dominate here. So the first thing I have to ask Dominate, before you knew about the Xpecial stuff, before you knew he was coming, I heard that you were involved. Your team was involved in possibly like looking at some different people in the off season. Like maybe we can get this player, maybe we can get that player. Before Xpecial was announced, your team was like one of the only ones in the whole league that hadn't made any upgrades whatsoever. Was it a worrying period at all? You were seeing all these. You're seeing Dignitas grabbing these players. You're seeing this team add people. Were you at all concerned, like we're going to be in trouble if we don't do something?
No, I think we were pretty confident in our team. Like, just given our progression, like we had been getting a lot better throughout the split, and even like into playoffs, we had been getting better and better. So I think we were all confident that even if we did like maintain the same lineup, we would be able to like continue improving and like challenge for like a top 3 spot at Worlds. But yeah, I mean, it definitely made like the goal look harder. Like Dignitas, like obviously was like looking stronger. You have LMQ, who's gonna be like fighting for Worlds, obviously too, and then CLG's like getting stronger. I'd say with Seraph, it's hard for me to tell right now because I haven't played them, but theoretically they should be stronger because I don't know why they would downgrade. TSM, it's pretty hard for me to judge whether they'll be stronger or weaker. I guess I just have to see. Personally, I didn't think that like Amazing was super impressive as a jungler in Europe. I thought he was good mechanically, but I don't think that he's going to be like this savior that comes into TSM and now they're just like the best team in NA. And Glebe is somebody that's been hanging around the amateur scene for like a while in NA, who's I've always thought was solid, but he's not just like he's not the mad life of NA supports either. So I don't know. I mean, it definitely was like increasing competition, but we were all confident like that we could make it to Worlds if we just kept on like improving, kept a good mindset.
Monty, you know, on this show, our whole mission statement is to keep it real. Okay, we're not just gonna let things slide. You know, so I have to ask you this, Monty. When I saw Curse finish 4th last split, I was like, oh no, that's the worst thing that could happen for them. Because what happened was they could have lost to Dignitas in that first game, and then they would have been like, in the first series, and then they'd be like, fuck, you know, something has to change. We need to change something if we want to get in contention with the Cloud9s, the TSMs of the world. Instead, they'll get to beat Dignitas, then they'll play Cloud9, who everyone agrees is the absolute best. They'll lose to them, and then they'll just lose in the 3rd place game. They'll be like, you know what, we had a good season. I think at the end we were picking things up. You know, I think Voice getting it going in the mid lane. Next season, guys, we're going to build on this. It's going to get better. Realistically, the Curse you saw end last split, Monty, would they really have come top 4 the next time round?
Probably not.
Why not? What is your sense for it?
Well, we talked about this last time too. I think that Voyboy's really been struggling in the mid lane, and you asked me which one of the legacy players do I think is kind of next up on the old retirement board, and he was the player that I picked out alongside, you know, Snoop and Yellow Pete probably. He has been struggling to adapt to the mid lane. I don't think there's a question about that. I think that X Special is a good, solid upgrade for the team. As far as I mean, potential attitude issues aside, but I don't know what his deal with Curse was, or if it was something that was antagonizing him on TSM, or maybe this like gave him the kick in the ass he needed to improve his attitude, or what have you. But in theory, that's a good move for Curse. So maybe, but I think it's quite difficult to tell right now.
Okay,
for
so
all
we
the
put,
teams.
yeah, sorry. So we kind of put like set the scene there for what we were thinking, what Dom was thinking. With all that said, when you wake up one day and it's confirmed, they tell you like, oh, by the way, we're getting X Special for free to just be our support player. You must be like, that's like Christmas, right? Just a free best support player in the region joins.
I mean, I don't think it was that easy of a decision to get rid of Bunny. Like, I think that Bunny was like a player that had a lot of potential, and like I could definitely see like if Bunny was the best support in NA like next season, I would like 100% believe it, because he had the drive, he had the determination, and he had the mechanics to do it. So,
but he's not like special.
I mean, he's not like special right now, but I mean, who knows down the line, like how good he can be. That was the thing that was really exciting about Bunny as a player, is like he comes in, this 17-year-old kid, and like he was mechanically like a beast, and he was aggressive, and he had like that kill mindset that I just like love to like play with. It just felt good playing with him, like just having that confidence like as a jungler that now I can like make plays with my ball, I can interact with my bot lane and like know that like he's gonna hit the skill shots that matter and everything. So yeah, I mean, I'd agree that Special is an upgrade right now, but I had a lot of confidence in Bunny, and yeah, I'm just after playing with him, he was one of the best supports I'd ever played with. So
I've got to say though, listen, the pressure is on Cop now. Cop got to have Edward. Now he gets to have X Special. He's got to be good now. He's got to be really good. This is, in theory, we're going to max his potential out now, right?
Yep, in theory, but there's still like all those growing pains that have to happen with lanes. Like we haven't got to scrim against top NA teams yet, so yeah, I mean we don't really know like exactly where we stack up right now. Like because we're just scrimming like amateur teams and like bottom tier LCS teams, so like it's hard for us to tell right now like how good we'll be, or like how good like our bot lane will be specifically. But yeah, I mean all that will come with time.
Also, even though Monty mentioned there, like he referenced, potential attitude problems. It's worth pointing out that when I think of teams where someone got kicked for attitude problems, most of the time that might only be particular to that one team. I mean, there's a famous example where supposedly they kicked N-rated because his attitude wasn't good and he didn't practice much. But then that period of leaving the team made him realize, like, okay, maybe I do need to fix things, and it got a lot better, and he's doing great in SK now. And also, I'm always a bit wary in the special case because it's like, oh, okay, so X special had attitude problems, did he? Funny how everyone in TSM who's not called Reginald ends up at one point in time having attitude problems with Reginald. So Dyrus gets told off all the time, X special, Rainman, Chaos. Who hasn't? What, fucking Dan Din or someone? Like what do you do in TSM not to eventually have attitude problems? It's almost like they're breeding people with attitude problems towards Reginald. What could be the germinating force there? I don't know. That'll just be a mystery we'll have to leave for now, children. Let's go on to the next topic.
I have a question, actually.
Okay, go on.
Did Curse put like a special clause in an Special's contract that says that you have to review vlogs before he releases them? I'm just wondering, that's like a major problem.
No, he's allowed to philosophize as much as possible, so we'll let that happen.
Is he going to be and stuff? Because I remember there was a period in TSM where maybe he wanted to do that. Is that going to be something it'll be his role, do you think?
Shot calling, yeah.
I actually lost you for like the first part of that.
Yeah.
Okay, will he be involved in shot calling?
Yeah, he'll definitely be involved in shot calling. It's just something that he kind of does naturally. Just like from playing with him, he's really focused like on the mid game, on like in the mid game he's super focused on the macro game. Like he's super focused on deep warding, like rotating between lanes, like just winning the game like the easy way, and not just like going as ham as like we normally go on Curse. So yeah, I mean I definitely think it's like good to have that voice of reason. He will be like contributing a lot in the shot calling aspect.
When you went through all the other teams there, where you were talking about some of the changes, I don't think you mentioned Dig, did you? What did you think of the Dig acquisitions?
I mean, I think that they're upgrades, but I don't necessarily think that they're instantly better than us, which is like what everyone else like seems to think on Reddit. But
I certainly don't think that.
Yeah, I think that they like still have a lot of like the same problems they had before. Like they don't really have good shot calling. I don't think their rotations are going to be specifically good. I think they're just going to be like kind of like lane beasts, and if they like beast lane hard enough, they'll probably just win the game, and if they like go even in lanes, they'll probably lose. So yeah, I don't know. That's how I view it.
If we go forwards then, all these teams in theory had upgrades. So how do you see the next season shaking out? Because at the moment, if everyone's upgraded, everyone's going to be like at the moment, every team who made a change, everyone was like, wow, they're going to be top 4. There's only 4 spots, so who's going to be top 4, Dom?
It's hard to tell at this point, but yeah, I definitely just think it's going to be like a lot more competitive. I don't think we're going to have this huge division between like top 3 and like bottom 5 like we did this last split. I think it's going to be more like top 6 and bottom 2. So
okay, so in the summer split last year, Cloud9 dominates. Okay, they go 25-3. And afterwards, listen, everyone's giving them props. Everyone's saying, wow, they're amazing. They're the best team in the region. But every single player I spoke to on camera or off camera who's from NA told me, like, listen, yeah, they did awesome last season, but, we just didn't get their style. That won't happen again. Don't worry. They won't dominate like that again. They won't beat everyone. And, we'll be beating them next time. Okay, so spring split comes around. They were right. They didn't dominate the same way. Instead of going 25-3, they went 22. Yeah, 24-4. They lost 1 game more. Is this going to happen for a third split, Dom?
It could happen. It's kind of tough to tell. Like they might drop more games like in the early part because of like the whole like situation with High, and they like just played with Link. And it's good that they obviously have been playing like together as a team. Like they have been like getting good practice. But yeah, I mean I could see them potentially dropping more games or maybe winning like the same amount. Like they're definitely like the strongest team in the region right now. But Yeah, I think that like it's gonna be increasingly competitive because now like instead of just like them having to take like two teams lightly or two teams instead of them like not being able to like take two teams lightly, they'll be able to like they'll have like 4 or 5, 6 teams that like all are competitive that they'll have like struggles with, or they'll have like the potential to take games off. So yeah, I mean I think it just like depends like how good they are with high, like if they've lost anything, or maybe they're just like even stronger from having all the all-star experience. So
Do they dominate, Monty?
Yes, probably. I think that the way things are going to shake out in the split is that Cloud9 and CLG will be in the top 2, and then it's a free for all in 3 through 6. Like I think TSM overall is going to have some troubles adjusting in the short term, and that will lead to a not as impressive record this season. And I think the other teams will be attempting to find the changes necessary in their shot calling in order to actually be competitive. And LMQ does not have good shot calling either. That's the thing about them, is they're going to be probably looking a lot like Dignitas. The way to think about LMQ is kind of like OMG light, very mechanically skilled. They play like a Chinese team. They play like a Chinese team.
I wonder why.
Thing is, I think Cloud9 for sure is going to dominate again. Listen, I could see them losing more games, but I still think they're getting to like 20, 21 wins or something. I think they're still gonna be firmly on top. So I think they're number 1 for sure. But actually, that's interesting when I think about the TSM CLG thing. Like as it stands right now, how could I say that they're going to do better? Like there's not really any basis for it. Okay, they upgraded jungle position. But again, that's not a direct 100% upgrade because you're upgrading the player, but the guy who played there before played with some of those other players for a long time. So immediately there's something a bit off there where, like, that's not necessarily that instant flip a switch and you're way better there. Then the support position, that could go really badly for all you know. So actually, I think TSM did CLG a huge favor by making the support change, because if they just added amazing, then I'd say, yeah, it's probably enough to keep them ahead of CLG. Whereas now, I could actually see, CLG become second.
Well,
so then,
it's also the problem with TSM is that they lost a shot calling player and replaced him with an amateur player who doesn't have significant professional experience, and that's risky. I mean, if Xpecial was shot calling like he is on Curse, when you play with him, Dom, as he is on as he was on TSM, then that does hurt their already poor shot calling. And we've heard in the interim, we've heard from people saying that Amazing wasn't the primary voice on his team, on the Copenhagen Wolves. And
that was a mistake where people said he was the shot caller.
Apparently he was not, what we heard about later. But in that situation, TSM has poor shot calling. That's something that they have. And so I don't see any direct upgrade at this position. I see Amazing over time will probably end up being better for the team in the odd one case. But replacing a jungle or a support with very little professional experience compared to a really old veteran in Xpecial is a risk. It's a big risk. And also takes away some of the shot calling from the team. So I just don't see TSM in the short term in this season performing better.
So there was a topic we talked about on another show last time we discussed all this that I think Dominate might have an interesting opinion on, which is one thing people haven't considered about changing to Amazing, was that in the old TSM team, Xpecial was the engaged man every time, and he would be on Thresh, he would be on Leona, he would be on Annie or something like that, and he would start the fight, and then they would all go in off that. Now, do you think that changing these players, do you think they still keep the Glebe guy and he's the engage? Do you think they force Amazing to engage somehow? What do you think they would do there? What's your sense for that?
But even TSM doesn't know that question because they've never played with Amazing. That's the most baffling thing about the TSM changes, is that they are bringing in a player and signing him, and he's never even played a scrim with them. Why would you do that? I don't understand that at all.
Mechanics, just pure mechanical upgrade. They looked at Amazing. They were like, oh, those are some like nice insect plays. Like, all right, like that looks better than like Odd One's mechanics right now. Like, bring him in. Like that's pretty much it from my perspective. I feel like most of the changes that teams made were like, with the exception of ours, were more around like the mechanical side of it. Like I don't think that like Shifter brings more. I know for a fact that Shifter brings less from a shot calling perspective than Scar does. But he's a better mechanical player. Like he'll probably win lane more often, and they're just gonna like hope that like through like coaching they can like have these players learn shot calling, which isn't as easy as like everyone thinks. If it was that easy, then everyone would just be a shot caller like at the professional level. It's hard to like make those decisions, have the confidence in those decisions,
and also
and be able to just like act on them.
It's hard to get the reads because you're trying to play the damn game at the same time. Well, I won't say easy, but it is easier for me when I'm watching CLG Scrim and I'm on Skype with them to help them out and ask questions of them while they're playing and you know, work on the calls. But it's incredibly difficult to do that as a professional player. That is literally the hardest thing to do in League of Legends, and that's what separates pro players from the solo queue players.
Exactly. That's like the whole difference between a pro player and a solo queue player is just being able to like make those like decisions under pressure and being able to like understand the game like and like kind of see the game from that like third party perspective while you're in it. And it's like something that like throughout like my career like I've had to like work on a lot. It was like obviously like the hardest thing for me to like learn as a player, and I'm still like nowhere close to being like a great shot caller, but at least like recently like I'll know like some of the calls. Like that's the hard part for me is like knowing like all of the calls, like all the right points, like being able to make a decision on every single situation that comes up in the game. Because there's sometimes where it's like an obvious call. It's like, oh, like we just need to like go bottom, like bring the mid laner with me, like come bottom and dive. Like some of those calls are obvious, but like knowing what to do in every situation is what takes so much time. So yeah.
Is there a degree to which okay, so the way Cloud9 are winning is like objective control, taking the fights they want. Is there a degree to which it's almost giving up that everyone else in NA just thinks like, just get better mechanical players, maybe we can beat them mechanically? Like, is there no way to just make teams that are more cohesive? Like, look for players who just fit, like on this team, we need this specific thing, this sort of player, and even if he's less skilled, if he's going to work better in that sense, we'll go for that sort of a player. Is there no players out there you can do it like that?
You can, but it's a lot harder to like find that. Like you need to, because the problem is like how are you gonna like know before you actually play with them? It's hard to like replace a player and just like have them come in and like practice with your team and then be able to like make a decision. It's like, all right, so this is what he offers to the team and this is what our other player offers to the team, and now we're gonna like make a decision based on that. It's pretty much like you decide like we need like a new supporter, we need like a new jungler or like whatever, and then from there you kind of just like fill in like who you think is best for it. It's hard to just like go into it with the mentality of like, yeah, we're gonna upgrade shot calling and this is like the player to do it, because you don't really know who shot calls on teams. Like you don't really like you hear from people like, oh, this guy's the shot caller of like Coast, but I didn't even know until recently that Zion was the shot caller of that team. No, like I always thought that. Yeah. I thought it was like Shifter or like maybe like Nintendo or I don't really even know what I thought. I just didn't expect that it would be their top laner. So yeah, it's really hard to like understand that, because yeah, I mean if you talk to like any player and they're trying to join a team, it's like, oh yeah, Dom, do you like make calls? It's like, yeah, of course, I'm like the shot caller. Like that's like what like everyone will fucking say. But like, yeah, you just kind of have to like you kind of just have to like see it in action and just kind of get lucky in that perspective.
So Zion Spartan has been around the scene a long time. He was playing way back in those Monomaniac teams, then Team Dynamic. He was always around the scene. He was always going to these lands. So it's not as though he is a brand new player and he's a rising star. You know, he's still learning the game and he's trying to get things together. So as a result, when you see him having these problems, like he had problems carrying before, or he always wanted to carry, or he had issues with shot calling, do you really see him like transforming when he joins Dig, or is he going to be the same player he was all the time? What do you think?
He might change a little bit. He might have a little bit like less of that burden on him, like having like stronger voices on his team. But yeah, like it won't be like a drastic change. It won't be like, oh well, now he's just like a completely different player. Like everyone will kind of just play the same way they used to.
Okay, well, Dom has to go in like 10 minutes, so let's think about a good topic to close on. Can you think of anything, Monty?
I've got one.
All right, let's do it.
Fire away.
We could talk about like international players and bringing them to like North America and like what that does for the scene.
Well, you, buddy, were one of the first teams to get first with Edwards. So, yeah, there's obviously. I think that the attraction in North America is that the teams tend to be more stable and less shady than a lot of the other teams in many parts of the world. Teams like the teams with the big money or larger money, Curse, TLG, TSM, Dignitas, Cloud9 now, tend to be stable and therefore attractive to the pro players. So it's interesting though, and I think it's certainly improving North America as a whole.
Yep, I think it's improving like the North American region, but like the problem that I have with it is like if you have all these foreign players and foreign teams like in the LCS, how good of a representation of that is that of like the actual region? Like how like if LMQ goes and wins Worlds, is that really like a North American team winning Worlds? Like it doesn't feel like it just because they played in the North American LCS, which is why I personally believe that the Season 2 structure was like a lot better for like North American teams because you had the option to like go compete in like an OGN. Like I would love to see like how Cloud9 were to do if they played in like an OGN, got all that experience, and they were still able to like earn a spot through like North American regionals or something in Worlds, but they had that more exposure. They were able to like play on that international stage more. So
well,
yeah, I mean,
if Riot rescheduled the spring season of the LCS, it would be an option for other teams to compete in OGN winter.
Yep.
That's another thing I've been thinking about too, is that the excuse that is given as to why we can't have more international tournaments is that, well, it takes this long to have a split. There's certain weeks in a split where you either don't play in that week or you play one game. If we're going to be professionals, just make the same amount of games over like 6 weeks. It wouldn't even be that big a deal. In fact, it might be better for some people that every single time you play the 3 games each play day, instead of those stupid weeks where, okay, Dominate, he only plays once this week, and so I play him in my second game when I'm all warmed up, and he just plays me immediately. Vice versa, I play him first of all and I lose, but then I play another team and I'm warmed up to beat them. Like, the whole thing's just a bit off. It's identical amount of games, but it's not identical circumstances anyway. So to me, just make the season shorter if you want to have that many games anyway, or just do best of 3s or do best of 2s, whatever you're going to do. But like it seems unnecessary to have it be like the 3 months of time, right?
Well,
yeah,
I think the 3 months is fine. I think the 3 months is fine, but in terms of what Dominate is saying, I appreciate the fact that you want it to be representative of your region and the players to be there, but shortening the seasons isn't necessary. It's just moving the seasons so that there is a possibility of international competition after Worlds, but before the spring season of the LCS starts.
Or just get rid of like the spring season, because really, like, what is the spring season worth for like LCS teams? I mean, like, the only real reason that people like want to play in the spring season is to get to the summer split. Like, you don't really gain anything from like winning like spring split. What you gain like $50,000 is like the prize pool or whatever. But yeah, I feel like the regions would be a lot closer in skill if there was just like a summer split, like you have like your summer split, and then like for like the first half of the year, you just have these opportunities to play in international tournaments. You can play in like the IAMs, you can play in OGN if you want. Maybe more pop up because of like the restructuring, but I definitely think that it would be beneficial to like have just more international play. That would like help all the regions. So.
You could also do
That's
something
another
with having
thing,
one
actually.
longer season as well.
Yep, longer season could work too. Like maybe you just have you start like the LCS season in March and it runs like March to August. Like that would be fine, and then that still opens up like the winter OGN or something for North American teams or European teams. But yeah, I definitely think that like a higher level of international play would work, and I think I might have just died here.
No, you seem to be here still.
Nope, he's gone.
No, he's gone. Okay. Oh, I guess that's just him gone off the call now. Right. Do we need to throw to a break for 5 minutes so we can set up the 2-cam shot, or are we still there? I'm waiting for my guy to tag to me here.
Yeah, we'll do that.
We will continue though. I mean, Monty, in a minute. One second. What's happening? Okay, so we had IWillDominate on there. Thanks for coming on. He had to go. His laptop was dying, or I don't know, something like that. We're going to continue here. Yeah, Riot was like, you came fourth again. I told you not to do that. Get in prison. You're not special.
They put him in. They put him in a jail cell next to Apto and Incarnation.
Yeah, in opposite the cell where Skara and Dyrus died. Anyway, yeah. I have to say, that conversation we just had there, it's like I mentioned to Dominate there, I was so worried for Curse as an organization when they came fourth, because I knew that's what their mentality would be like. It'd be like, we picked it up at the end, guys. We did manage to, we almost came to the final. We almost came third. Fourth is still good. Next season we just have to improve one spot and we're going to be third. Like, before they got special, I mean, I was worried for them, right? So it was a bad situation to be in.
Reasonable concern, yes.
I actually do think, though, that the special, considering they go in for free, like, that's actually a potentially great addition because of the experience and the shot calling aspect. And also, like I said last week, if you wanted someone who could potentially bring out some next level out of COP, that's probably the player to do it, who can actually play that style, right?
You hope so. I'm very interested to see how it's going to turn out.
And also, it's not the same as the Edward scenario, because unfortunately, the Edward scenario was basically that Edward came in. Listen, he was nailing it. His mechanics were nuts. He was really awesome in game, but he didn't like to talk, and he doesn't have super good English, and so he was just like a bot running around. He was like a really high-level bot, just landing thresh hooks, and then you're trying to talk like group top, and he's just like, just doing whatever, and so it's a bit different with Xpecial. Like, first of all, he knows some of these players. He has the experience playing the region. I think that'll be a much better chance to do well. It's not like when they brought Edward in nothing changed,
Yes, I agree. I think this is absolutely the right change for them, and it kind of sucks for Buddy, who they brought on, but I think that his experience, his greater fluency in English, when they need somebody who can contribute to the shot calling, will be good, I think, in the long term. But I mean, they still have some pretty large issues with the mid lane right now.
So when Dominate was saying that point that he made about how, okay, he basically said, yeah, like, I would try with an analyst, but it's different. Like, if Montecristo was my coach, then yeah, I'd do what he says. And what he's sort of implying there, okay, is Monty's established, and people know him from the Korean commentary, and they know that, well, now they know him as a coach. And so he's already got the cachet where the people would listen to him. But actually, a point I didn't make was, I did an interview with Kelby recently that I haven't released yet, where he basically said that the initial talks with you over becoming some sort of a coach or figure or mentor or whatever were actually way back in like 2012. Like, I think he said just after Worlds 2012. So like, let's say like October, November. We have to remember, to set the stage for people, that wasn't Montecristo, the OGN commentator or person. This was just a guy who'd done MLG casting and he was a journalist. That's all you did at the time, right?
Correct.
And so it's not that they just took you were really established, it was a slam dunk to bring you on. They were willing to investigate what could happen, even when it was quite a big gamble, right? And they didn't necessarily know how you'd fit or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, we were starting to talk about it then, and it was, I think the initial talks came because after talking with Kelby and Hotshot, that we all realized that our goals and vision of esports was very closely aligned. And so it was kind of this point where our philosophical ideas about what esports should be really came together. And I had previous experience coaching and managing teams in Warcraft 3, so I did have a little bit of background, although in a different title at that time. So it was just kind of mentioned a little bit, not it wasn't really seriously pursued until about midway through 2013.
Okay, so that is a slightly different scenario to what most teams are going to be in, because, okay, you were known as a figure, and also, like you're saying, they could talk to you before they made any commitment. They could kind of gauge, like, what do you think of things, or how would things be in your mind if you were in this position? If you had to think of a scenario in which a team, okay, so we just talked to Curse there, how could Curse go about getting a real analyst? I mean, the thing is, I know they're out there. Like, I've seen people write articles who are clearly very intelligent, and they know how to break the game down, but I don't know how that person either becomes aware that coaching is possible, or how the team themselves then become aware that they exist? How do we make these people meet?
I mean, the main problem actually is that while you and I see a lot of these very good articles that are written by analysts on blogs, and there are certain people that I know they're not well known, but they write really excellent pieces. It's just never seen, but because they're not well known, their content doesn't get upvoted on Reddit, and then they're into this like cycle of they can never actually get their content out there to be seen, even though their breakdowns of the games are actually extremely good. But also not easily consumed on Reddit. They're frequently long articles. They're frequently articles that require a base level of knowledge to understand what they're saying. And it's unfortunate because that's how some analysts have gotten involved in the scene, is through their content being distributed. And that's just not happening due to the crappiness of Reddit at the moment.
I mean, the funny thing is, I could even see a world, like if I'll give you what I would do right now. Okay, I don't know anyone who would be an amazing analyst and he would do every single thing I want and he would get that one role of analyst and he would nail it and he'd do it all amazing. So if I was at Curse, okay, I'm imagining I have some resources and I want some sort of analysis. I literally would have gotten a couple of people before, I mean, they didn't go to this tournament, but if I was in that scenario where I was going to go to this tournament, I'd have gotten like one of these guys I'm talking about who I know they watch every OMG game. I know they watch every LPL game. Some of them even watch LPSL. Like, these guys really watch that one region. I'd bring them in like a scout, and I'd just say, okay, I haven't got time to make all my players watch 50 VODs, so give me the breakdowns. What does China do versus this pick? What do they pick into this? What type of comp do they want to use on this sort of a game? And I'd have one guy for Korea, and I'd have one guy for China. And I'm not even necessarily telling the player, like in that Dominic example, like in this game, you're going to be Lee Sin and you're going to go do that. I'm just giving him more information, you know. I'm sort of like a human database of like parsing for the good info, giving it to them quickly. Even that would be a step up over, because that's what annoys me, is that it's like when we talk to Froggen. Yeah, well, we would have an analyst if there was a really good one out there. Well, that's a catch-22 situation. How's there ever going to be a good analyst if he hasn't ever had a job? And he can never become a good analyst, because if he joins, like he said there, Dom, and after 4 weeks you're not winning, you're going to fire him. So how can he ever be good? He has to appear out of the ground, you know, fully formed and ready to own.
Right, and that's the thing, too, is that I didn't start out as the best analyst before I moved to Korea. I was working a 50-hour or more a job a week at a law firm and writing articles and doing the game when I could and casting at nights at MLG and at weekends on MLG and shit like that. But it wasn't until I was in Korea and had a full-time job and could watch VODs for 14 hours a day that I actually learned what I know now about the game. I didn't like, you know, come out fully grown, you know. It was a process that I went through when I got a full-time job in esports at OGN. I wasn't that great of an analyst before I went to Korea. It's true.
Also,
you have to give motivated people an opportunity to develop those skills. That is absolutely true. I am a living example of this.
It's also the case that I feel like, okay, you know when I said that thing about the hierarchy before, I think that's one of the biggest problems in misunderstanding, is that there are different coaches as well in Korea. There's not the one coach who's also your analyst, who tells you when to get up, who schedules the practice, and who like disciplines you. These are different people. There are coaches in some of these Korean teams who know fucking nothing about League of Legends. Their job is to discipline you or decide the payment or to talk to the sponsors or to talk to the head guys of the organization. The coach who actually coaches you on the game is usually a different guy, and all he does is coach on the game. So it's not, you can't tie all the roles together. Like when he was saying there about the analyst telling him like, do this, and then sort of like, if it's wrong, then it goes back on the analyst. Okay, like, oh, he made the wrong call. There wouldn't have to be that sort of a scenario. Like in my scenario I described, where he's just giving you more info, there is no downside to that role. Because at the end of the day, he just gives you the info and you make of it what you will. He doesn't give you the info, then you do something wrong and you go, ah, you gave me the wrong info. No, all he did is give you the info to make the decision. That's only a positive. And so I don't think you need to have the authoritative guy right now. We just need to get the other guy in place. The authoritative guy is going to be hard to get anyway, because who can really command the respect of the players, you know?
Well, not to mention that I don't think that really many teams have a coach who is authoritative in the way where he will just like make the definitive last call and say, this is what we're doing. Blah, blah, blah. It's always a dialogue with the players about how do we feel about this, because everybody brings their own knowledge to the game. And so you have to kind of feel it out and see what's good. And sometimes you have to like push something through of players being resistant. But a lot of the times it's a lot more of a democratic process in general.
No, that's the whole point as well. That's why I'm saying if this guy's here as an analyst, he can't be taking anything away. All he's doing is adding another voice. And as long as every now and then it's got something of value, it's added another voice. It's added something extra. There's like a famous saying, I think it's a Korean saying actually, that I heard a coach once say, which is that nobody knows as much as all of us know. And the notion there is like, okay, it's not that I know more than you in every sense. It's that I know something that you don't know. And so as long as we both know something each of us doesn't know, we both contribute it, then the collective overall is going to be stronger and have more knowledge as a collective than any of us could separately. That's why in general, most teams don't go for that super hardcore Reaper style strat caller who tells everyone, like moves them pincer perfect. Like you move in. Well, even they don't entirely do it, you know. They have more of a democratic aspect. By the way, Adam, I think your mic might be unmuted or something, because I can hear some background sound. Yeah, okay, you got muted there. I thought I could hear something. Right. Let me think.
Anyway, it is an interesting situation, but it's not one that is so easily remedied either, right? It's something that takes time to develop. And yeah, here's what should happen is that, for example, when I'm like going to my players and I'll say, look, I saw this champion used with this strategy, with this team comp, in this other region, this is what it did. Can we do it? And then basically when my players will be like, well, I'm comfortable playing this champion in these matchups for XYZ region. And I say, okay, that makes sense to me. And then we go proceed from there, right?
Sure.
It's not dictatorial at all.
But the funny thing is, what's funny is I would understand Dominate's point about he doesn't want to risk this season, because think about it, he's right. Okay, in his career, if his team gets relegated, that might be his career over. Maybe another team doesn't pick him up as the jungler, and so as a result, he can't really be thinking personally on the curse level. He has to think about IWillDominate and keeping his career going and improving a little bit. He can't think about, oh, it's okay if I get relegated and I get my sacked, but then Curse get back 3 seasons later and they do have a good analyst and it all works out. Like, he can't think that way. But I think the organization should think that way. Like, okay, listen, if I was TSM, I actually might not risk it. I might not risk messing up the season if I thought I could still maybe beat Cloud9, or I can qualify for Worlds anyway. Maybe with them, I can get taking the short term. But if I was Dignitas, if I was Curse, if I was EG, teams who were definitely not going to win the split, I would go the long-term route, because that's the only way I can win in the long run. I have to go, okay, I'll be weaker now, which I already am, but in the hopes that my coaching staff in next year are going to be amazing, and then I'll take over the CLGs and the C9s of this world, because now I'll have the edge that I need, you know. I mean, is that too naive a way to think?
No, I don't think it is a too naive a way to think, and I think that we do see players like Skara and the Odd One moving ostensibly into more of a coaching role. The problem that I see with them moving into more of a coaching role is that, like I said, the coach needs to focus first off on watching the game rather than playing it, so that you can be as constructive as possible with the players' time. Players play the game, you watch the game, you give the insight on the big picture strategy that they don't have time to glean from all of these VODs from other regions. So unless there's a big shift in the way that these people go about the game, also, to be fair, not everybody has the ability to both have very strong analysis of the game and shot call in the moment. Chowster is a great example of this. Chowster is very good at analyzing the game, but he is very bad at applying knowledge when he's playing, but really bad. So in terms of a team shot calling perspective, right, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, here's something funny. Those two things you just said there are both the reason why Chauster would actually be a really good analyst, but also why he probably will never get that job from a really big team. Because on one hand, he would be really good at it, but I get the sense they would judge his problems with shot calling in game and think like, oh, he doesn't really know that much about the game, or oh, he's mistaken his ideas. But I think you're right, actually. If you take Chauster and you made him the coach of a team like a Curse or Dignitas, that could potentially be very good as like the analyst role, you know.
Maybe, but there's the other problem too, is that when you have it's really difficult to tell whether that person can also teach that knowledge to somebody else. Like that's the issue, is like you have to be able to teach not only the information, but also the meta skill about how to read and deliver that information in the game. And that's where sometimes I think the everything like falls flat.
That's also where I worry about the ex-players who do it for their teams.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what worries me, is because unfortunately some of these guys, some of them do have the knowledge and some of them were good players. But first of all, like for example, I'll give you a good example, Curse. So I don't know exactly to what extent Saint does actually coach, but I would be worried that that could have flaws in it. Like for example, he has such a high status within that organization that like I wonder how much dialogue there is there. Like if he says, no, this is what it has to be and it goes this way, then does he get the final say in that regard? Do other people get to go back at him? There's also the factor of, when you were talking about Chauster there, what I was remembering was, okay, Chauster, if he had full time to break it down in an article or on a vlog, he would give you the best analysis, dude. But if you were talking to him in an interview, like maybe he would quickly to a player, the way those players used to talk used to infuriate me as someone who likes articulation, because they would, in fact, Saint was another one for it. He'd go like this, okay, they just lost a big game by throwing it at a certain point. He'd be like, man, we knew what we did. We threw it at a certain point. Like, yeah, whatever. We knew we should have done that. They make it seem so simplistic as to what went wrong. Whereas if you were actually going to coach in that sense, you'd want to do the opposite. You want to open it up. Like, look, guys, it wasn't just the one thing that cost us the game. We had a couple of mistakes here, which put us in a bad situation. Then we made a bad decision here. And I think maybe you did. Okay, he made a mistake there, but maybe you didn't communicate to him some information that he needed. Like this way that we do it is a very simple way for someone to consume, and it's gradually building things up. It's not making it all like, oh, you just did one thing at the end, just don't do that again. Like that sort of a coaching. It's true, the person in their mind knows what was wrong, but they're not communicating it properly. That's what I sometimes worry about with some of the ex-players, because they don't have the teaching skill in that sense, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yes, that is what I'm saying, is that you have to be able to teach the information well and to break it down into all the necessary components, all the necessary steps, every little thing, and be able to present it as a cause and effect relationship that dictates certain basically forks in strategy and how that affects the rest of the game. So maybe some of them can do it, maybe some of them can't, but it's just a concern. I agree with you.
Why do you think, because I have an interesting topic we could talk about here, why do you think shot calling is just there's so few that were good at it? It's like, listen, the reason why I have a good analogy for you here is because in Counter-Strike, we had the same problem where every team by default has a shot caller because someone has to do it, okay? But as a result, most teams, it's like that. It's just, you get the team together, so as you're putting the team together, you're going, right, we need skilled players, we need a guy who can do this, a guy who can do that. It's like, once you got the skill together, your afterthought is like, okay, now who's going to shot call? Whereas really, when you see the impact a really good shot caller could have, you'd think that would be like building the team on him. Like, right, well, we need him first, then we need our star, then we need this. And so, believe it or not, Counter-Strike is a very tactical game as well. Literally, at the beginning of every round, you're calling a tactic. Well, in Counter-Strike, it was almost the same as League of Legends. There was all these hundreds and hundreds of teams, and maybe like 50 top teams. Yeah, out of all these teams, over 10 years, there were maybe like 10 guys ever who I could call like really, really top level shot callers, who could read the game, who could do all the skills you need. Maybe 10 guys ever. Other people were just good for 3 months, or they were just good in this one team, or they just had an okay enough style that the team could still win. Why do you think in League of Legends it's still such a rare quality?
I don't know. I think people aren't trained. Well, I think that they're just not trained properly and that teams haven't been putting the proper motivation on it. I think that is the number one thing that I focus on, and the thing that I think dictates winning and losing more than anything right now is shot calling, communication in game. So I think you really, really have to focus very deeply on that and be really concerned with any communication problems that you have, and set up a system within the team where everybody knows what everybody else's job is in terms of communication, and then play that out.
I also think sometimes if you don't have the one guy, and by the way, it's going to be very rare that you have the one genius who can do it all. Because I always used to say in Counter-Strike, the reason why it didn't exist and why there were only the 10 guys ever is because really being an in-game leader was never just like one skill. Like in Counter-Strike, for example, you needed to design a strategy beforehand, read what the enemy's doing in-game, call a strategy at the beginning of the round, and change the strategy in the middle of the round. Those are 4 distinct skills. And even if I'm amazing at one, who says I'm going to be good at the others, you know? And so usually you might have someone who was like 3 out of 4 they were good at, or 2 out of 4. It's very rare you'd have someone who's good at all. What's funny is, a good example of this is Cloud9, because they've taken those skills and divided them among 3 people. They've got Lemonation designs the picks and bans, and he watches the other regions. In the game, High shot calls the game. And then when it comes to specific objectives, which is Meteos's domain, he calls that. So they've broken up the one shot caller thing. They don't have to have the Reapered guy. They make 3 people do it. So I actually think some teams haven't thought that part through. Like, I actually think TSM used to be good at this. Because if you remember, Chaos used to do the pick ban, and then in-game Reginald used to shot call the game in it. And so again, you've got a similar scenario there where you're breaking up the responsibilities. How many teams do you think actually do that at the moment, pro teams? How many just have it all on one guy? How many do you think actually break it up like that?
I don't think most teams intentionally break it up that hard. The concern with having only one shot caller within the game itself is that it places a lot of burden on that guy, and if that guy is busy for any reason, whether he's in a very complex duel or running through the jungle and needs to focus on his screen and can't look at the minimap immediately or something like that, is that it does create a lag time in terms of some shots that need to be called. So that's one of the reasons why we try to have a more cooperative shot calling between Link and Afro on CLG.
Because like one of the teams I think is a good example of this is Fnatic, actually, where their shot calling is so spotty. You just think to yourself, like, that's the obvious area they have to upgrade in, but how are they going to upgrade? Like, okay, supposedly Yellowstar's a good shot caller. I've heard good things about him and some good aspects that he does. But supposedly, okay, I don't know if you saw this at all, but someone said, and I had it confirmed, that during the playoffs of this last LCS split, when Aranea left Millennium, he actually was brought in to help them design the level 1s, because that's what him and Yellowstar used to do their combo in SK, okay? Aranea with the jungler, and he used to do the level 1s, and then later on in the game, Yellowstar would take over the shot calling. And so I could have seen, okay, that maybe that did give them a little boost, and that helped them in the playoffs, win the playoffs. But the problem with their team is, it's so loaded with skill that the only player you can remove for playing bad is Cyanide, and then if you're going to put someone in there, you'd probably want it to be, since you've got so much skill, you'd want it to be like a really good shot calling jungler or something, right? And I don't know who it is that you get that. So what does Fnatic actually change from your perspective? I can't see what they change.
No, they just need to get the big picture analyst in there to do work with the team. They have to change from within. Like, you don't make a roster change right there. You actually have to just get somebody in there to improve their in-game communication and their sense of objective priority.
Can you see the point I made though before? Like I agree those criticisms all apply to Fnatic, but I can also understand their perspective. Like, you know, someone has this comment of like, I won all 3 splits or whatever, like, let's see you guys do that or something. I can sort of understand that because it's true. If other people are going to say it, then it's easy for him to say, like, well, if it's so easy, then why don't the 2nd and 3rd and 4th best teams all do this? And I mean, let's face it, SK, for all accounts I heard, had awesome practice, did way better in-game leading, way better shot calling, and Fnatic crushed them. So it's not like it's just one or the other, right?
No, it's not necessarily, but also I think that you mentioned that, I mean, we talked about earlier on the show that Fnatic is generally a more clutch team when it comes to these things, at least in terms of when they're actually motivated. But it's hard to say. It was a very weird circumstance, I think, that at All-Stars compared to the normal performance.
The thing is, I'm actually friends with like a couple of people on Fnatic, and I would say that I'm not like defending them here, like they shouldn't have to practice, and that's totally fine. Listen, just leave them as they are. Because I would say this: people get super mad whenever okay, here's a funny story for you. Remember, there used to be this guy called the Odd One. He used to play the jungle for TSM, and if you said that the Odd One should be removed, every TSM fan got very upset. They were very hurt and disappointed that you would say that, and the top 2 in NA. Well, now that he's left, and in theory they've maybe got a better player, now everyone's over the moon, and it's awesome. That's the whole point of how I was breaking it down when I said he was up on the chopping block. It's that if you're looking for someone you could improve, and you really do believe, okay, we're not just going to be top 2 in NA, we have to try and be the best team in the world, that's an obvious person to replace here. And so in the same regard, you have to judge Cloud9 and Fnatic who win their split every time, you can't judge them against their region. You can only judge them against SK Telecom, against OMG. You have to say, if they're not as good as those teams in some way, then they're behind and they have to fix something. It's not good enough to be like, oh, get them next time. Like, go back to your region and just dominate everyone. Because you saw, same thing for OMG. OMG are owning LPL right now. They're dominating, but they got dominated completely in the final by SKT. So we can't be like, great job at OMG, you're doing a really good job. Go back to China, pick Yorick, and then we'll see you in 6 more months. Like, no, they have to fucking step their shit up, don't they? We actually criticize them quite a lot.
Yeah, everybody does. That's the thing. And without any roster changes, how much better can Cloud9 get? We won't know. But, like, they have no reason to make roster changes, I don't think, right now. There aren't any other better options on the table to replace any of their players, really.
No, that's the funny thing is they have the exact opposite problem to Fnatic. So I said in Fnatic, it's true. Almost everyone in Fnatic is so skilled and good at their role and like top 2 or 3 in Europe that you sort of can't replace them because it feels like you're going to downgrade if you do that. So it doesn't make sense logically, you know. It's the opposite for Cloud9 where their team as a cohesive team works so well that I feel like even if you upgraded a position, you'd probably make the team worse, at very least in the short term, if not forever. Like they just have that special, the 5-man that you can't break up, you know.
Yeah, I agree. So, but they have improved actually. And I mean, I think feel like you've referenced this a lot on the show that they may not be competitive at an international level, but in fact, they are getting increasingly, I think, competitive at a professional level. So we do see that development with Cloud9.
Oh, on the analyst topic, so there was a story the other day where this guy, Last Shadow, who I know you know in real life in Korea, who used to be a StarCraft 2 pro, and now he played in the MVPO Blue House for a while when this was like way back before they won OGN Spring, I think.
Right,
and he's been doing this coaching recently that's been quite popular, putting the videos up. They're very good actually if you watch them. Like he goes into a lot of specific details that like Korean players will do, like how they dodge or when to trade in a way that like you wouldn't see if you just watched like Voyboy play on stream. Okay, so they're very good, quite didactic, but that's the kind of thing I like. Well, it was announced yesterday, I think, that he's become the analyst for Super Hot Crew for next season in LCS Europe. So here we have a team taking a chance. Obviously, he maybe has a better advertising to become an analyst because he put these videos up and people can see that he has a lot of knowledge. What do you think of this potential move?
I think it's a good pickup for their lane play. I don't think it's going to help them in terms of their rotations very much because he has a lot of solo queue knowledge but doesn't have as much knowledge of the professional scene as it exists today. So, but for helping in lane, I think it'll be great for them, and having somebody to really break down their play is fantastic, and he's very knowledgeable about that kind of stuff.
Also, like I say, that's a decent gamble to take. I mean, first of all, you're Super Hot Crew. You're like probably the worst team in the fucking league. Like, no offense, you know you are. You're like the 8th best team. So it's not like you're taking a huge risk. So why not try it? Why not see what can happen, you know? In fact, that's the funny thing. That's why Soaz is sort of right. It's like the analogy I made before. The teams who definitely can't beat Fnatic and Cloud9, if it's so true that it's easy, you just go out there, you pick up an analyst, you start practicing every day, next thing you know, you're winning the whole league. Well then, Soaz is right. Okay, I'll just chill and do what I'm going to do, and I'll see you in the final of LCS next split, and you guys can all beat me there. Now, listen, I'll give you a head start. You have an analyst, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. If it's really that easy, then someone will. I suspect it's probably not going to happen within this split. Like, I would hope people just look long term though and think like, even if we did, okay, I'll give the Curse at Dominate example. Let's say they don't take the risk and they do finish 3rd and they get to go to Worlds. Okay, that seems good, right? You finish 3rd, except you finish 3rd convincingly behind Cloud9. You go to Worlds, you get dominated in the group, you maybe win 1 or 2 games over like Type A Assassins, and you in general get your head kicked in. Then you come home. Okay, now what you're thinking? Well, okay, we've got experience, we're going to improve for next year. How are you going to improve? You don't have an analyst, you don't have a coach. You're just going to do the same shit again. Hope the league hasn't got stronger than you. And what? Do the same again, come 3rd next year? Like, there's no progress can be made without the structure. Like, you'd need a miraculous team to come up on their own with no analyst, no coach. You can't improve otherwise. I don't think players can do it on their own.
You need another Cloud9, right? That was what was so amazing about Cloud9 in the first place, was that they were able to come out of the amateur scene and they were able to just convincingly crush everybody in their first split in the LCS. But that probably isn't going to happen again.
No. Especially as supposedly Like when I said before they have the special lineup, part of the reason why everyone gets so mad when I say that they don't have the absolute best players at each position is because their team, it's so obvious to me from watching them before they were in this team, the different players, and watching them in this team, that some of their players just aren't as good in the other teams. Not as in they aren't good players, but as in being in exactly the right role with the sort of player who works well with you makes you better. So I'll give you an example. When I did an interview with Skara after Worlds last year, he told me, okay, you know Hai used to play mid lane a long, long time ago, and then he went to jungler for Orbit. And he came back to mid lane after Ni and Tonso left and they made Cloud9, okay? Supposedly, Skara told me that Hai, when they first started again in mid lane, was like insanely bad. Like he would just die instantly at like level 1, and then Meteos would just be like, what the fuck? Like I don't even have time to gank for you. Like what am I supposed to do right now? Like he was insanely bad. But the whole point is, obviously, going forwards with their team, something about the way Meteos worked with him or figuring something out about his own play relative to other people is what put Hai in the position he needed to be in, from being an average mid laner to a really good mid laner in NA. That's what people don't know about Cloud9. It's not that these players were super amazing and everyone's a fucking idiot and Wild Turtle was sat out there, Ni and Tonso was sat out there, and Meteos was sat out, like Meteos was playing fucking in a like team and go for laws and everyone's just an idiot and they can't see how amazing he is. He wasn't that amazing. He was just a normal player. What happens is when you get people with the right team, unless you are a god like Wei Zhao or something, if you need the team to make you what you are, right? There's very few players who can really shine without a team, right?
Well, yeah, or Faker, somebody like that who is just a ridiculous player in solo queue and has insane game sense. But you typically don't gain good game sense until you have a professional team or a good team to play with together as a unit for a while.
I mean, just think how many fucking bot lane players we've seen where you get stuck with the wrong bot lane guy for 6 months and everyone will think you're shit. Meanwhile, you might be really good, you know. It's like people, what's funny is people think I overstress the mechanical aspect. I only do that when I'm comparing player to player because it's too hard to know the other variables. So we have to shorten the variables down to compare. But in actual teams, I think you should always consider it in the context of the other players. Like I'm going to be very, very interested to see Gambit and how Diamondprox plays without Alex Ich. Because I think Diamondprox is a genius, but I suspect he's going to look a lot weaker without Alex Ich, because part of that, and maybe vice versa, by the way, part of what made that combo so amazing was the two. Like there's something that they each brought to the other that overlapped that made them like next level, right?
Yeah, and that was the thing. That was the amazing thing about Gambit, was how well they worked together at an instinctual level ever since the old Empire days, moving into Moscow 5 and everything subsequently. So I think that Gambit's probably in real trouble. I mean, we've already talked about the trouble in previous shows, the trouble in Europe, the dark storm clouds that are brewing in the distance and the ominous crackling lightning. But it's coming, you know? It's coming to Europe.
And here's a funny example as well to make my case again. Okay, so you remember really early in LCS Spring in Europe, there were those people who used to be EG fans when they had Froggen, who were mad that Froggen sort of like left their team and went to Alliance and the other guys went to America. And so they build it like this. If you remember, EG won like a game early, meanwhile Alliance lost the first few games. And so they phrased it like, see, that's what you get, you know. You betrayed your teammates who were good and you said, you know, we've got the mechanical skill, you've got the shotgun, but we'll make it without you. And so, you know, the Alliance guys, they deserve it. Well, what's funny is Alliance went on to become one of the best teams in Europe. Meanwhile, EG were appalling in NA. And what's funny is that actually makes my point for me that I just made there. It's not that all of a sudden Crepo and Yellow Pete and Snoopy fell off a cliff and magically became way worse. Went to NA, a worse region, then it did even worse. It's that the combination of the good players of Alliance and the players that they had in EG together still looked decent in EG when they had it last year, if you remember. They were still the fourth best team in Europe. They weren't terrible. So even if, for example, Yellow Pete isn't a very good AD carry now, he was good enough within the context of having Wicked and having Froggen that he could be in a decent team that could win games. But you take him and you put him with these inexperienced laners who aren't super beasts, and now he looks like he's terrible. It was never one or the other. He's not terrible and he wasn't amazing. It's that depending on the situation, that's how good he's going to be.
Of course, that's why the team synergy is so important, and you can't discount it by any stretch of the imagination. That's probably
Speaking of the EG team, don't you worry about them? Like, even though they've said they're going to try out for those positions, come on, man. Like, I'll just say my opinion first of all. I don't believe they actually will recruit people at those positions. I think maybe they recruit one. So maybe they replace Yellow Pete or maybe they replace Snoopy. But the reason why I don't think they do is because the whole purpose of that team is it's a special... Okay, it's not a competitive League of Legends team, okay? The aim isn't to win LCS Summer. The aim of that team is to be a marketing vehicle for Snoopy, Yellow Pete, Crepo, with some extra players. Let's keep them in the league so they're in people's faces and in their eyes, because they're the best guys to sell the product for EG and to sell the brand and to sell the image and the identity they want to put across. Now listen, I don't doubt they practice and they really believe they're going to win some games, they're going to try, but there is a cynical aspect to how the team is put together. They're not trying to be the best team in NA, right?
Well, I actually disagree with that because I think they actually are having very serious tryouts right now from talking to Crepo about it, and that's the way it sounds, is that they really have been. So, I mean, I can't verify that 100%, but just in...
What is your sense, though?
No, I think they are. I think they are having real tryouts.
So then here's the problem with that. Let's say you do real tryouts, okay, and people outperform your players you have now. So next split, we come back. Okay, Crepo stays, because I can't imagine there's a better challenger support who's going to beat him. So let's say Crepo stays. But come on, if there really is a lot of talent out there, then there surely must be players better than Snoopy and Yellow Pete. I'm sorry, there must be. And so if so, now your EG team is Crepo, and then 4 people who the fuck are they? None of them are good for marketing. They're nobodies. None of them are superstar players, okay? So now we just got Crepo and the Crepettes, like 4 people. Like, that team probably isn't going to do that much better. Maybe it can come 1 or 2 places better. So now you've sort of given up the one thing I thought you had as a positive, which is let's just stay in the league but have the famous players so we can market them. It's like you're stuck in between the two there, aren't you? I mean, how are they going to come top 4, Monty, even with the best pickups in the world? It's not going to happen, right? The Crepettes are done.
Yeah, probably. Crepo and the Crepettes may not have a long lifespan in the... I mean, here's the thing, though, is that even Crepo and the Crepettes are probably still good enough to stay in the LCS for a while.
No, but listen, okay, they could stay, but isn't that kind of like a futile goal? Just like, don't get relegated? Like, you have to have more of that go for you. Come on. We've got to have a civilization here. Hopes, dreams, Montecristo. Can't just not fail.
I think that they were in a very awkward position where they are trying out from... They're the only team trying out for multiple roles during a very short break between spring and summer, which I think puts them in a really awkward place because Dignitas didn't have tryouts. They were just like, we will take these players now, right? We'll take Zion and Shifter, and that's it. They had the target on these guys already, and they just got them together wholesale, right? So, and then TSM... They had tryouts for support, but they just randomly decided on Amazing, which was weird, to be fair. CLG has been more active in terms of trying out top laners, but I can tell you from our process of having people play with different top laners on different continents and testing all this stuff, it took a long time for us to get to kind of winnow down our decisions. So it does seem like a tall order to have tryouts for several positions at one time.
So I can see a flaw with the Riot system right now, which is preventing what you're talking about. So when you said there, TSM assigned Amazing without ever playing even a game with him. They just sign him like, okay, you're our jungler for the next 2 years now. Come on over, here's your salary, join up, go in. And then let's say he joins the first game, and for some reason, in my imaginal hypothetical world, he's like Zuna when he went to jungle, he's just fucking shit, right? Then they're fucked. Well, here's the problem. What option did they have, Monty? Because with this scenario, unless someone is a real free contract, he has no contract with someone, then if someone's contracted for 2 years to another team, to even sign them, I have to get the team to agree to release him, then I have to bring him over. Well, who's going to leave their team and get released on the off chance that you then try me for a week and say, yeah, no thanks? Well, then I'm out of a job. I could have stayed at the last team. So aren't the contracts sort of stopping this being possible to try people?
It does make it a little bit challenging, that's for sure, but also you can go after the free agents, or I don't know, maybe you could arrange some sort of subterfuge for a tryout in terms of taking a vacation or who knows.
Oh my god, this is so sneaky, Montecristo. So basically, next year when CLG during the off season goes to Cancun for a week, I should just like be at the airport taking pictures of like who's running up with like a raincoat over them. Like, who is that? Wait a minute, is that IWillDominate?
Sure, why not, Thorin? You could be
Okay.
there with the
Fair
the hidden camera in your glasses, just like snapping the pictures,
Yeah.
sitting behind the newspaper on the park bench.
With
You're
like
gonna
a
be pretty-
true.
You're gonna be pretty fucking obvious though, with your giant red beard.
Don't worry about that. The thing is, though, with all the improvements as well in LCSNA, like, dude, doesn't EG have to be the worst team in LCSNA now? How can they not be?
What? Worse than complexity? I don't know.
So, no, complexity is the worst. Okay, it's well, I don't know. I think those two are going to be pretty tied at the bottom for worst. To be fair,
I think you're probably accurate in that statement.
I think those teams are like, okay, I'll say it now. I don't think either of those teams wins more than. Okay, I don't think either wins more than 8 games this season. There's a bold statement for you right there. Am I going too far? Am I going too far?
No, I think they're gonna get crushed.
Because the problem is, if the other teams have improved as they should have, okay, I can see them all beating each other, but I think they're all going to dumpster those teams, surely. I mean, on what grounds can they beat them? Not mechanically, no special tactic. I mean, actually, here's a funny thing. Here's an example of how even having good shot calling or rotations and all that shit, you still need to have the players. If you watched EG last split, they were a decent team tactically, right, Monty?
TSM?
EG.
Oh, EG tactically. Yes,
Yeah.
they were okay.
Yeah.
They had some okay dragon fights and dragon control and stuff like that.
I mean, I saw games.
Their early game, their laning phase was pretty bad.
Like, they were actually a lot better than most of the other NA teams that knowing when to take a tower, when to have a dragon fight.
That's true.
Their objective control was clever. The problem they had was, yeah, maybe they did have that fundamental thing, but where were the stars? Once you have the strategy, the star then needs to do his part to win the fucking game for you. You can't just have no star players. That's the thing. People make it one or the other, you know. Like, you have to have all the star players, or you have to have all the in-game leading and all that stuff. You need, like, a really clever balance between the two. And then depending on style of team, you can lean one day or the other, you know. Like, if you're TSM, yeah, you can overload a bit more on talent, but I think EG is an example of where you don't have enough talent to carry out what you want to do. Because that's the other thing. Making the correct decision doesn't matter if you can't then execute it.
Also, the problem with EG last season was that their champion pools were extremely poor. Like,
and how can that be? That's just being bad players, right? Because we all know they had time to practice. It's not like they had a week before the games. Oh, I didn't have time to practice. You just can't play those champions then, right?
yeah, I mean, I won't speculate as to the reasons behind the players, but I can tell you that the champion pools were not good. They were resorting to a lot of legacy picks for the players. They didn't look comfortable on champions that were powerful in the current meta. Very weird.
Doesn't that, as a general topic though, Monty, that is something you'll hear all the time about the champion pool of a player. But like I just said there, if we're being honest, if you're a player who has 2 champions he can play competitive level, and then they ban one out, then you're just a bad player. I'm sorry. You might be good on that one champion, but overall you are a bad player because you can be banned out. Really good players can't be banned out. You can weaken them. That's the whole point of the ban phase. But the difference is, if we take Froggen's 2 best picks away from him, on his 3rd best pick, he's still going to be like 85% of what he would be, you know? It's not going to wreck his game. So if you can be actually banned out of the game, you're just a bad player. I'm sorry.
And also, if you can't play meta picks, then you can't adapt quickly enough to the changes in the game, and that's problematic as well.
Like, the reason I'm making this point is because people are going to think we're being too harsh because someone might be mega on that one champion. But the reason why that's a key concept to understand is the reason nobody wastes all their bans on Froggen is exactly that reason. Say you waste all 3 bans on Froggen and then you first pick, you know, something that he was going to use. Okay, difference is Froggen's 5th best champion is still pretty good, and now every other person on his team gets to play whatever they want. So now, even though you took that away from him, you strengthen the rest of his team. So if there's a team somewhere where you can ban out their player and then their team can't even take advantage of that, that suggests there's something wrong with the team. Like, they're not a very good team. Like, you have to be harsh with it. That's just the way it is.
I agree with you.
Now, let's talk a bit about Korea. Here's the biggest problem with this fucking tournament, dude, that we just had now, is that I would love to believe, like I did with KTB, oh, they turned it around. That tournament, you know, that gelled them together. They figured out what was wrong. But the reason I can't believe it, and I don't believe that they're top 3 material still, is because of that Frost game. My God, that was disappointing. Ozone,
Yeah,
okay. we thought Ozone was the best at the time, but Frost, come on, Frost aren't even that much better than they were in their match in the round of 8, you know.
Yep, for us, SK Telecom played that match very poorly.
I mean, doesn't that kind of make you, even with how good they looked at this tournament, it's hard to be that optimistic that they've made the progress yet in Korea, right?
It's extremely hard to be optimistic. Of course it is. Until we see more from them, and we will see more from them. They're going to play the KT Bullets. They're going to be playing in the Masters playoffs. Then we'll know.
Like, another thing as well, here's what looks so suspicious. All the games SK Telecom did badly in, Bengi was like a fucking walking corpse. Like, that guy was doing nothing. Yet at this tournament, it's the Bengi of old. He's looking awesome. He's playing great. Like, I just can't believe that he magically stepped on like French soil and became what he used to be, and then now he's going to be the same when he gets back. Like, that just suggests to me that just the competition wasn't as good, right?
Well, certainly the competition wasn't as good. That's like the one thing that isn't in question, right? That's just 100% factual. But
I mean, I actually think as well, you could even make the case that he got an easier time at this tournament. Because think about the teams who qualified. Only team who qualified who have some beast jungler is Meteos, Cloud9, and their team was weaker. So Fnatic, the weakest player on their team is the jungler, and he's not an aggressive one-on-one duelist type jungler. OMG, for sure their weakest player is the jungler. I think everyone else on the team's really good, actually. But their jungler has some weaknesses, and so really, what was there to threaten Bengi? He wasn't playing Kakao, he wasn't playing Dandy. He wasn't playing anyone who's we already think's better than him. So really, what did he prove?
not a lot.
What about the other player who... Oh, everyone's going to say Bengi was the X factor, but the player who looked like he improved the most between the Korean period and here was Pumandu, right?
Pumandu was in a slump. He had taken a break, and I think that was actually even more, in the end, a surprising difference was that Mondu played so well. Still, they
he's
lost.
Back to that old style, you know, where he can play anything almost.
Yeah, he still lost lane a little bit harder than he should, but that's always been his problem. Like, that's the thing, is that Piglet has said in interviews that Casper is a better lane player than Mondu is. But when Piglet's asked, would you rather play with Mondu or Casper, he says Mondu, because Mondu is a better shot caller and also is better in team fights and is better with team communication. But he is weaker in lane, that's for sure, and he still is.
So, I mean, we saw here, when Mandu's level steps up again, Piglet himself, then he becomes the star again. He becomes like the second star after Faker. Like, that was all on point again, right? Just like it was at Worlds and all the rest.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, we'll be seeing the NLB third place match very shortly. I think it starts actually like in an hour or so, like really shortly. So a lot of these questions will be answered.
By the way, didn't you one time do casting for NLB? Did you want to do a match or something?
No, I just sometimes talk about it. I
okay.
Maybe like broadcast it over my apartment, but NLB gets
yeah, you might have done a final or something. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, NLB gets really mad when I do that.
Okay, I see. NLB is, I have to say, that is one of the coolest ideas for a format. I would have never thought of that, because the genius thing you've done there is link the top level competition and the second level competition, but in a way that makes sense every time. Like, it actually makes sense what you're figuring out, and then how you're then going to qualify people into the next season. Like, that's what I wish they'd actually try and do in LCS. Somehow link the challenger and the other one like that in some way. Like, for example, think about, okay, here's a good idea for you. Maybe people will think this is stupid, I don't know. I would have it so that the top 6 teams in LCS can never get relegated. Only the bottom 2 get relegated, and they automatically get relegated, as in they drop into my challenger thing, and then they have a chance to get back in. But it's like NLB; they play the teams who've made it through my challenger thing, and then there's just a bracket there, and then we play through to the 2 teams who get in from the final.
Yeah, exactly.
There'd be a holistic element to it where it makes sense that once you drop out here, you don't worry about the playoffs. You start practicing for your matches here. We can finish it all up in good time. And it's not like this bullshit now. Like, one thing that has to end, in my opinion, is the system before, where you play 6 months of challenger shit to decide your seeding of who you get to, to decide which of the teams who are getting relegated get to pick which of you they want to play. Because we've seen that system doesn't fucking work. It leads over and over again to 2 of the strongest teams playing in that round every time. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's it's a very interesting system. I do like NLB very much because not only that, but it gives the amateur teams somebody to actually practice against and to improve against as well. So I think it feeds the amateur scene much better. And the other thing that I like about it is that the first and third place matches for NLB effectively decide 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th and champions. So we have a very clear cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is cool.
Plus, it also actually solves those problems. If you know, whenever you get the bracket where it's like, oh, they went out too early, they went out in the round of 8, like what would have happened if they'd have played in the other side of the bracket? Would they have made the semis? Well, you might actually even get to see those matches in MLB. They might go down and they might play versus Samsung, well, not Samsung Blue because they make the final. They might play versus like KT Arrows or someone. You might actually get to see them play and then see how far they would have made it and how those teams actually match up against each other. That's like a really cool feature considering single limb takes that away, you know.
And also the fact that if an amateur team really catches on the rest of the ranks of NLB, and sometimes it's quite surprising.
Okay, people on like, I don't have the Twitch chat open, so send me a couple of questions now. We'll do it the same way as we always do. Hashtag summoning insight, all one word. If you can't spell that, then I don't think you're the sort of person who we should take questions from anyway, so tough shit. We'll take a couple of questions, and while we're doing that, I'll think of another topic to talk about. Let me think. What were we just talking about there?
The
NLB. That's
NLB.
Yeah. Oh, that's something I forgot that I wanted to mention was I don't say things like I want to rub it in, right? Like, oh, everyone else was wrong and I was right. Like, remember that stupid logic last year that you kept hearing in interviews? Like, it'll be so much cooler if for the World Championship, you know, that's the first time the regions have met. So you get the narrative of their region, like, oh, OMG gets on top of China. Then they go to the finals and they play the team who was on top of Korea. And then the European team gets to face the NA team. On paper, if you've never watched a game and you don't know anything about sports, you might think, well, there's logic to that. I understand what he's saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Think about these two tournaments we've seen this year, IEM and now the All-Stars. Those have only made Worlds way better because now we have awesome storylines that lead into Worlds from these tournaments, right? Now, if Cloud9 come better than the Chinese team at Worlds, now it has even more context to it. Like, they weren't there back here, and when they played with a different player and what happened with them, and then we saw Fnatic do terribly here. Imagine now if Fnatic go on a rampage and they come to the final of Worlds. Again, the story would be shit if we had this tournament, because remember what the story would be before. Yeah, they were on top of Europe. I guess they were always just the best. And then they went to Worlds, they came second. You know, that's all that happened, right? You've missed half the story there.
Yeah, I do think it's really good that this tournament happened, and I really appreciate the fact that Riot did change the format into something that was more like a mini Worlds, where you could see more international competition this time, and also that IEM happened as well. That Riot allowed it to happen. That they allowed ESL to host this international tournament. I think it was great, and I think that it does give more flavor to the narrative moving into the World Championship for sure.
And also, I have to say, by the way, I would actually give Riot huge props for the tournament. Yes, the name was retarded. Like, if you want to have that name, just make an All-Star game as well at the next one. But the concept of the tournament was fucking awesome. Getting to see all the round-robin games, then get to see the semis, then get to see the final. Like, listen, okay, the games themselves, some of them weren't that good. That wasn't Riot's fault. They can't know that Fnatic's going to turn up and be total shit and get raped by SKT. They can't know that Cloud9's going to get body bagged in the semis when they were so competitive in the group stage. That's just the way the games play out, okay? You can't blame Riot for that. And also, let's face it, Riot themselves, through no fault of their own, got screwed by the fact that Cloud9 couldn't use High. Like, it's not their fault what happened. That would have been a better tournament if they could have had him. So taking that aside and just looking at what they put together, it was an awesome tournament. Like, I'm really glad they did it. I hope they make this like a fixture every year between the two splits. Do this international tourney. Do it like this again. Maybe figure out a better system for deciding who comes from Korea, but just get that tweaked, and it'll be an awesome calendar moment in the year. Like, everyone will look forward to it. It'll be great.
Well, Riot, in a way, lucked out because they didn't get the strongest team in Korea at the time. And if SK Telecom and KT Bullets as kind of mid-tier or lower top-tier Korean teams are capable of moving in and getting that big win, right, with 0 losses in terms of games, then they're kind of fortunate that this didn't happen in a different way.
Okay,
At
here's
least
a
for the
question.
sake of the tournament. At least for the sake of the tournament, because you have to assume that it may have been even worse if Ozone had showed up or something like that.
Okay, here's a question. What do you think the odds are on an all-Korean final at Worlds?
I would say it depends. The factors that we could be seeing again is if a team like Ozone decides to mega choke again, like they did at the World Championships last year. If we had seen Ozone in top form, we probably would have seen an all-Korean finals this last year at Worlds. But if there are three teams, then probably they won't all be drawn into the same side of the bracket. So I think as long as the Korean team, all three Korean teams, like don't choke, then it's highly likely. Highly likely. If there's a Korean team that chokes, and then we see things like two Korean teams drawn into the same side of the bracket, that's the only thing that created a non-Korean final this year, because there's not really a doubt in my mind that Naj and Sword would have managed to claw their way into the final if they'd been on the other side of the bracket.
That's the key thing, really. It sounds like a cop-out, but in my opinion, the only factor is how the bracket is drawn. Because if three teams who are strong go from Korea, then this used to happen in StarCraft, okay, where Korea was by far, they were way, way, way ahead in Brood War, okay. Every WCG would either be all-Korean final, unless, like, the two Koreans who were the best played each other in the same half of the bracket, like in the round of 8 or something. Otherwise, you need a massive upset from someone who isn't Korean to make it happen. Now, obviously, in League of Legends, it isn't as big an upset. Like, for example, let's say the bracket gets drawn so that the two best Korean teams are on one side, where one has to knock each other out, and the third best Korean is on the same side as an OMG-type team. Now, okay, now it's possible the OMG team can beat the third best team, and they can get into the final. So in that scenario, okay, it's not going to happen. But I think it's the most likely outcome actually is an all-Korean final. Unless there's some weird bracket, I think it's the most likely outcome to have two Korean teams play each other.
Yep.
So the follow-up,
especially since they have a home crowd advantage and they don't have to leave. So
the follow-up question: which three teams from Korea will qualify for Worlds, Montecristo?
Well, nearly certainly SK Telecom T1K, because they already have the 400 circuit points. And they're probably going to be in the semis or quarters again next season, right? They're going to make it out of the group stage. They're going to get enough points that they'll probably guarantee themselves a spot. If Naj and White Shield wins this season, because they made semis last season as well, they're probably going to be guaranteed a seed as well. And then beyond that, I think it's really hard to tell next split, because I think, again, a lot of it depends on how good the KT Arrows get and how quickly, because when they're good, they're incredible. But they're very inconsistent right now. So the KT Arrows could, if they catch on fire at the right time, they could be in a good position. But it's probably going to be a bunch of teams duking it out actually in the qualifier. I think that SK Telecom K and Naj and White Shield will get enough circuit points to automatically get the berths, just because of the circuit points that have already been won, and because I think that Shield is going to win this season. So it will really depend on finishes next season, but the last team will probably come through that free-for-all qualifier that we see. So it could be Blaze, could be Samsung Blue, could be a KT team.
Even though Blue rather have made the final now, and for all we know, maybe they win this season. I don't think they're going to be a team to make it. I think it's going to be Ozone or Blaze. It's between.
Yeah. Ozone obviously has a lot of circuit points as well, because they made the finals last season and then they made semis this season. So they're in a really good position. So they'll actually be tied in circuit points with Shield.
No, because what if Shield wins?
Okay, if Shield wins, yeah. But if Shield loses, they'll be very close to Shield in circuit points. Yeah.
It should be the same, pretty much. Yeah, you're right.
I think, but Ozone beat Shield in the third place match last season, so they will have.
Oh, okay. No, that might be right. Yeah. So
but it'll be really close.
Yeah, it's interesting. The thing is, Korea also is the hardest region to predict, and people think that's a cop-out. But what I mean is, the way they make changes in Korea are so drastic between splits that a team can go up and down in how good they are, like to an incredible degree that isn't possible in other regions. Even if TSM changes this player, okay, our worst case scenario is probably that they become like the 4th best team. They're not going to become like the 7th best team. Whereas in Korea, 1 or 2 amazing changes really can put you like 5 spots up or 5 spots down, right?
Yeah, we'll see how the KT Bullets do without Insec. I mean, obviously that's a major roster change for them. And
So how do you think they do?
Depends on who they get as their other jungler. We haven't.
I think they're done, dude.
No.
I think they're done.
Shut up.
They're never going to be a
Thorin.
top team again.
Damn it, Thorin.
Listen, after you just left me, hung me out to dry, while Loco just strapped me to a chair and abused me about Blaze. This is what you get. Just welcome back your Star Tail Overlords, because that's where they're going, buddy. 58th for life.
Oh man, no. I hope the Bullets can find a decent jungler, but it does seem that unless they decide to send Kakao back, and why would they? Because the Arrows are a very young team, and they're a very promising team the way they're built right now. So if you can get their consistency up, they're like a really major threat. But I want to take a question, actually.
Okay.
From Twitter, because this one pisses me off.
Okay.
From Alexander Lasatra. You keep criticizing TSM recruiting amazing, but haven't you done the same with Seraph? I assume the rest of that question is without trying him out? No, it's entirely different. I spent several days with Seraph just working on the game, talking to him about the game in English, in Korea, in my apartment. It wasn't there. First off, and there's no ink on the contract yet. We haven't signed Seraph, buddy. If Seraph doesn't work out when we play in scrims in the next couple of weeks, we will find somebody else, right? That's the reality of the situation, is that there isn't any contract yet. We haven't made an official announcement. Just because Reddit and the fans have decided that this is official doesn't mean that the team has. And we are still, and also we brought him out here several weeks in advance to practice in the team environment, duo queue with our players. It's been a much more thorough vetting process. Much more thorough. There's not even a remote comparison.
Okay, Monty, I've got a topic.
Because here's the question. Is
Yeah.
anybody from TSM in Europe testing him? No. Is he over here trying out for the team? No. Has he been announced as official starter? Yes. These are all three things very different than what we're doing.
I've got a topic for you that is going to spawn a rant. Okay? You going to enjoy this? So the topic, I'll ask you the question first, which goes like this. I remember after we did the show with Froggen, there was discussions of like maybe CLG could bootcamp with Alliance in the off season, as in now. But because of All Stars, it wasn't possible. Okay, it was all taken up, and so you couldn't have the bootcamp of a European team and a North American team. And I made a point after this tournament, where I said that North American and European teams should bootcamp together before Worlds. Because actually, my background in Counter-Strike, that was like a way you could improve. There used to be teams. There was a team from Korea and a team from Brazil who in their regions were very good, okay? They were the best by far in their regions, but they didn't have very much good practice. So what they'd do is they'd come 2 weeks before a big tournament and they'd practice with like European teams and they'd get like their level up and they'd just get better practice before the event. And so as a general principle, if the top 3 teams from NA and the top 3 teams from EU got together 2 weeks before Worlds and practiced together, it would only improve things, right?
Yeah.
For both regions, right?
Sure.
Because here's the thing. A lot of people messaged me on Twitter, not idiots even. I don't address the idiots. I just people that have valid points again. They think they're making a good point. They all said to me like, well, what would the point be? You know, it wouldn't change anything. They'll still lose to Korea. You guys don't get it. Think about the logic of what you're saying there. If the reason why it wouldn't help anything and they couldn't beat Koreans is because they're not playing anyone as good as Koreans, then you're admitting that you are not as good as Koreans and can't be as good as Koreans. In which case, what's the point in anything? Jump off a fucking bridge. Like, my idea is that part of the reason you're not good as Koreans is that your practice isn't as good. You don't have as many good players to practice against.
Yes.
As many good styles.
Yes.
The key thing is, when Europe plays North America, it's not that, oh, they're better than us or whatever. It's a totally different style. You need to practice different styles to be able to play. SK Telecom are the absolute best again. They don't have to play a different style. They can play their game and beat everyone. Everyone else has to be able to adapt to SK Telecom style, OMG style. Everyone else needs experience playing the other styles. They can't force everyone to play their game, right?
Not only that, but you say these would be the top 3 teams in Europe and the top 3 teams in North America. So you immediately, instead of just having 2 other teams in your region to practice against, expand it to 5 top teams, right? So you immediately get better practice than the bottom 5 in your region, and therefore not only do you get the better styles, but you get more quality teams to boot camp and practice with immediately before the event. So yes, of course it would help.
Especially because what's funny is Korea isn't going to boot camp with China. Korea's going to boot camp on their own and play their own shit, right? Oh, China isn't going to boot camp with Korea. They're going to stay in China and do their own thing. This is the one area where NA and EU, who all speak English, could actually get a slight, not an advantage because they wouldn't be better because they're behind at the moment, but they could gain a little bit of ground in a way that the others won't be able to match. You could actually get a little bit of an advantage. And what's funny is it's such an obvious idea to me. Like it would have made even more sense last year when everyone was going to America. Like, we're all going to come to America. We'll all stay in California. Let's play 2 weeks before. We'll come in a little bit early and acclimatize ourselves, you know. Like, the funny thing is, it's such a slam dunk obvious idea to me. But do you think people will do it?
Yeah, I think people will do it this year. It just depends on the timing that happens right before Worlds and the setup that can be gained in Korea in advance, right? So, it would be great.
The main reason not to do it is the notion of like, well, we want secret stuff that the others won't be prepared for. That only works if the secret shit can win you the tournament. At the end of the day, NA and EU, I've never understood why people get so fucking proud when either side wins. You're the best out of the fat, ugly strippers. No one cares about you. Everyone looks at the super hot stripper. No one's coming to you. You're the second to last. Oh, great. I'm only the second to last in the world. Well, fucking congratulations. Like, who cares? It's not something to be proud about. So if you could get together and make you both of you better, then go for it. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true. And not only that, but the tournament at Worlds takes so many games to play out that what the fuck is your secret anyway? Like, you have to just be a solid team because it doesn't happen over multiple patches. You can't have a secret pick every single patch like you could in perhaps a league or something like that, or innovating in some way. It's that all the games are going to be played on one patch over the course of a month, and people are going to figure your shit out in terms of strategy. So you just have to be a damn solid team and continue to make slight adjustments on the fly. But you can't just sit there and be like, yeah, we have the secret pick that's going to win us this tournament, because there's so many games at Worlds. You have to play the round robin, then you have to go into a group stage, or then you have to go into a bracket stage that you're going to be out of tricks by the time you reach the quarterfinals. So you just have to be a good team at that point.
Sure. That's the whole thing as well. I mean, I've made this point a million times over my whole career, because in Counter-Strike, okay, people would do the same thing. They'd be talking about some secret strategy they had. And I even just used to say, like, secret strategies are all well and good, okay? Maybe that adds a little bit of extra spice in, of something extra you can do. But you're going to win and lose the tournament on your fundamentals. If you're fundamentally the better team and you understand the game and make correct decisions in the game, you will win. It doesn't matter if he has a secret shit, if he's worse than you in those respects.
Especially in a best of 5. The cheese is going to win you one game. It's not going to win you a best of 5. Fundamentals will win you a best of 5. Absolutely.
Sure. I think we've covered about everything now.
Yeah, I think we should call it this week.
Yeah. This time was like a one-off where I'm not here, so we were recording it like this. Although we might do that when I'm in Korea. We haven't decided yet. I think we've pretty much covered it all, so goodbye from this episode. We'll see you next time. I don't know who the guest will be, but that's it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.